Chapter 500. The sky gradually darkened and dusk approached. The cultivators of the 5 spirit mountains were planning a new round of attacks in the camp. The Black Moon Sect's formation has clearly weakened after a few rounds of attacks, but the Heavenly Een Mountain will recover faster at night, so we have to break through the Black Moon Sect before it gets dark. The Heavenly Sword Sect and the Black Tortoise Sect will attack from the front. The Divine Secrets Sect will be responsible for restraining the Heavenly Een Mountain's corpse puppets. The Void Spirit Cave will be responsible for breaking the formation, and the Medicine King Valley will be responsible for supporting them. What does everyone think? No problem. The Great Zhou Country's 6 great sects: Heavenly Sword Sect, Divine Machine Sect, Black Moon Sect, Black Tortoise Sect, Void Spirit Cave, and Medicine King Valley. Every sect's inheritance was different. The Heavenly Sword Sect was the oldest of the 6 sects, and they were the strongest. They were all sword cultivators with extremely strong offensive abilities. The Divine Machine Sect was good at the art of puppets. The Black Moon Sect was good at refining corpses with evil methods. The Black Tortoise Sect had amazing physical strength. The Void Spirit Cave was good at formations and refining weapons, and the Medicine King Valley was good at refining medicine. How could the Black Moon Sect resist the combined forces of the 5 sects? The sect master of the Divine Machine Sect was a man dressed like an iron bucket. Because not an inch of his skin was exposed, his appearance could not be seen clearly. However, judging from his burly figure, he should be a burly man. There were dozens of people sitting next to this sect master, and each of them was dressed similarly. They were all dressed like iron buckets. This person was called Yuan Jinan, and was only at the rank 2 true spirit. In the other 5 sects, this was the level of an elder. There were only a few people in the Divine Armament sect who had reached the true spirit realm, and their overall cultivation was the weakest among the 6 sections. However, the strength of the Divine Armament Hall was not to be underestimated. Why is your Heavenly Sword Sect's sect master absent for such an important battle? Yuan Jinan looked at the Heavenly Sword Sect's people and said, "Are these foreign consecrators reliable?" The members of the Heavenly Sword Sect were all dressed like sword cultivators. Every one of them carried a sword on their back and wore blue or white robes. Their leader was a middle-aged sword cultivator who looked to be in his 40s. His eyes were like lightning and his bearing was extraordinary. He was the vice sect master of the Heavenly Sword Sect, Ling Ying. The Medicine King Valley's Valley Master Wang Tianyan, the Void Spirit Cave's Gu Lianshan, the Black Tortoise Sect's Sect Master Jin Kuei, these famous Great Zhou Country characters were all gathered here at this moment. The Sect Master of the Heavenly Rapier Sect did not come. Don't worry, Sect Leader Yuan. We can't all attack the Black Moon Sect. Who's going to hunt down the remnants of the previous dynasty? Sect Master has the deepest relationship with the Shen family, so of course this matter needs to be handled personally. The Heavenly Sword Sect's Vice Sect Master Ling Ying shook his head and said, "As for the Heavenly Sword Sect's foreign consecrators, everyone has seen their strength the last few times. If it weren't for the help of these experts, how could the Black Moon Sect's great formation be broken so easily?" Indeed, each and every one of these foreign experts was very powerful. The cave master of the Void Spirit Cave, Gu Lianshan, was a short old man. At this moment, he was looking at the silent figures wearing cloaks beside Ling Ying with a fearful gaze. Your Heavenly Sword Sect's strength is not weak, and these few years, you have also found many worshippers from other countries. It seems that your growth is a bit too fast. According to our agreement, after attacking the Black Moon Sect, the spoils of war will be divided between our 4 sections. I hope that the Heavenly Sword Sect will not break the agreement. Ha! Ling Ying laughed. Cave Master is worrying too much. The Heavenly Sword Sect has always abided by the agreement. The Heavenly Sword Sect will not take anything from the Black Moon Sect. The other sect leaders couldn't help letting out a sigh of relief. The Heavenly Sword Sect was the head of the Great Zhou Country's 6 spiritual mountains. Their strength was already very strong. In recent years, they had been recruiting foreign experts, becoming stronger and stronger, attracting the attention of the other sections. Fortunately, the Heavenly Sword Sect seemed to be tactful. They seemed to know the consequences of growing too fast, so they used the Black Moon Sect's inexplicable provocation as an excuse to join the other four powers to attack the Black Moon Sect. They promised to divide the Black Moon Sect, and the Heavenly Sword Sect wouldn't take anything. They would swallow a large power to strengthen the other four powers, restoring the balance of power in the Great Zhou country. They discussed their tactics. The cultivator army prepared to gather. At this time, something unexpected happened. Countless figures appeared in the surrounding basin, led by a group of fiery red figures covered in runes. They charged at the group of people. The exploding corpses opened up a gap and thousands of corpses wildly jumped into the basin. The Black Moon Sect had launched a sneak attack. The cultivators of the Five Mountains clearly did not expect the Black Sect to launch a counterattack, so their defense was clearly inferior. The Black Sect's sneak attack was also extremely crafty. They attacked the weakest part of their defense as if they had foreseen it, causing them to be somewhat flustered. Yuan Jinnan said with a face filled with shock, "Are the Heavenly Mountain people crazy? They're sending themselves to death without using the array? Charge for me. Destroy them." The cultivators of the Five Mountains reacted, but they didn't have time to counterattack. Several objects with faint white flames appeared above the basin, quickly flying at the cultivators. "What are those things? Who cares? Shoot them down." The Heavenly Sword Sect expert's sword flew out. Although the missiles were fast, they couldn't be faster than the swords of a true Spirit Realm sword cultivator. Several explosions rang out. Several waves of missiles were destroyed above the basin. Nangong Yun saw this from afar and said in a regretful voice, "Damn, none of them hit." Miracle Commerce's technology was growing day by day. With the detection radar, supercomputers, and enough energy, as well as smart brains controlling them, the missiles had a high chance of hitting targets several hundred miles away. However, the missile's weakness was very clear because it was a physical weapon that was easy to block. True Spirit Realm cultivators could break the speed of sound, and their reaction speed was 3-4 times the speed of sound. Therefore, if they wanted to kill a true Spirit Realm expert with a missile, they needed to reach 5 times the speed of sound. The Snake Scorpion missile could only reach 1 or 2 times the speed of sound, so it wasn't strange for it to be shot down by a sword cultivator that could use a flying sword. "Don't be anxious." Chu Tian was not anxious at all. The Snake Scorpion missile doesn't rely on explosions to deal with enemies. About 100 Snake and Scorpion Snake missiles were intercepted and blown up in the sky above the basin. Due to the chaos in the basin, and the cultivators of the Five Mountains were busy dealing with the sneak attack of the mysterious Dark Sect, no one noticed that when these missiles were destroyed, a large amount of highly compressed poison sprayed out from them. These solid poisons quickly liquefied in the high temperature of the explosion and released a strong stream of air. It was transparent and hard to see with the naked eye, but it spread very quickly, covering the entire basin in just a short while. "Careful! There's poison!" The cultivators cried out in shock. The Snake Scorpion Beast poison was a very fast poison. It was already too late when they found out they were poisoned. Chen Bingyu was almost killed by this poison in Qing's state, not to mention that it had been strengthened by Miracle Commerce. The cultivators of the Five Mountains were mainly awakened soul cultivators. How could they resist this kind of biological weapon? It was already too late for these people to react. The entire basin was like wheat being cut down, falling down in batches. "Quickly! Charge out!" The elders of the 5 large sects wanted to escape with their disciples, but the corpses controlled by the Black Moon Sect kept chasing them. With every second that passed, thousands of cultivators lost their battle strength. The entire basin was in chaos, and it was only a matter of time before they were completely wiped out. This is the main battle strength of the Great Zhou country? They're really too weak. Nangong Yun thought there would be a large battle, but the result was a one-sided battle. This was a bit too boring. Chu Tian shook his head. The Great Zhou country is still a large country, and the 6 spiritual mountains are the Great Zhou country standard. I don't think they can't even take a single hit. As if he wanted to confirm this, as soon as he finished speaking, a strange change occurred. Countless black and gray figures flew out of the basin like a swarm of locusts. Nangong Yun was shocked. What kind of monsters are these? This batch of flying things were all strangely shaped. Some of them were as big as elephants, while some were extremely petite. Most of them were shaped like giant apes, mantises, and so on. Each of their bodies was wrapped in precious light, and a large number of glowing runes were engraved on them. With a series of kakavoo sounds, a pair of huge wings drilled out from their backs. This is a mechanical armor made from mechanical techniques. It can fly, dive, as well as have various arrays and restrictions engraved on it, so it's no wonder it wasn't affected by the poison mist. Chu Tian rubbed his chin. Not bad, their mechanical techniques are much higher than I imagined. This is the ability of Tong Xiaoyu and the others. Nangong Yun was very shocked. There aren't many of them in the Great Summer Country, but this Great Zhou Country has this many. These were the Divine Machine Sect's mechanical masters. Although mechanical techniques were a small skill, mechanical masters that were proficient in mechanical construction were one of the most scarce talents in miracle commerce. Miracle commerce had already accumulated enough technology. Chu Tian wanted to develop large-scale weapons, airships, and fortresses, so he needed large amounts of mechanical masters. Miracle commerce's mechanical masters were very rare. There were only a few hundred of them. How could this be enough? The Divine Machine Sect had several 100,000 mechanical masters. If Chu Tian could control the Great Zhou Country, he would be able to absorb more experienced mechanical masters. Miracle Commerce's talents would increase by 10 to 100 times, and their future design and manufacturing abilities would increase by several folds. This also strengthened Chu Tian's determination to take care of the Great Zhou Country. After the mechanical masters ignored the poison, there were people from other sects that escaped, with most of them being people from the Medicine King Valley. It was probably because the Medicine King Valley was proficient in alchemy, so they had the habit of carrying all kinds of antidotes, so they could resist the poison. These people quickly organized themselves to counterattack. How could Chu Tian let them succeed? Prepare the source energy cannons and destructive missiles. I want to see if their turtle shell can block Miracle Commerce's bombardment. The missile launchers were already loaded with missiles. Several dozen source energy cannons were placed in designated positions. With Chu Tian's order, a round of terrifying bombardment began. The Great Zhou Country had never fought with Miracle Commerce before, so they didn't know anything about Miracle Commerce's weapons. There weren't many weapons transported in the space warehouse, but it was enough to teach them an unforgettable lesson. Chapter 501. Several large destructive missiles were controlled by the smart brain. Their speed, trajectory, and attack positions were all carefully calculated, so they attacked the weakest and had the highest chance of hitting. Several large flame clouds rose up, releasing large amounts of light and heat. The terrifying explosion created a terrifying killing effect, but it also created a dark shadow that covered everyone's hearts. After analyzing the enemy's situation with the radar, they found a way to break through. They immediately placed the destructive machine guns on the path, and countless energy bullets rained down like a storm, suppressing them. What kind of weapon was this? It was actually this fierce and terrifying. We can't continue to be trapped here. The Heavenly Sword Sect's Vice Sect Master Ling Ying used a secret sound transmission technique to shout out, "Divine Machine Sect, use the puppet beasts to break through. We and the Black Tortoise Sect will assist you." Alright. The mechanical armors that the mechanical masters wore were just a set of defensive equipment. The ones that were truly fighting were the puppet beasts in the hands of the mechanical masters. These puppet beasts came in all shapes and sizes. Some were like large birds, some were like tigers and leopards, some flew in the sky, some ran on the ground, and some swam in the water. There was nothing they didn't have, but they all had different functions. The Medicine King Valley threw a pill to the other sects. This is an antidote pill. It can temporarily resist the poison. Everyone attacked together. Hurricane God Shield Talisman. The Void Spirit Caves people threw out talismans without caring about the cost. This talisman can form a hurricane shield. It can greatly increase one's speed. Not only can it defend against the poison, it can also defend against fierce attacks. The puppet beasts are coming. Advance. Be careful. They're sending out strange fire arrows again. Heavenly Sword Sect, Sword array. Countless swords turned into intertwining streams of light, instantly sweeping away the incoming missiles. The Black Tortoise sect relied on their strong defense and speed to defend the left, right, and back, blocking the Een Corps's harassment and sneak attacks. Although it was very chaotic, the strength of the five sects was still displayed. The Mechanical Beasts and the Black Tortoise sect's soldiers stared at the rain of bullets, with several tens of thousands of cultivators following behind, forming a force to break through. If they broke through the blockade, it would be hard to predict the outcome of this battle. At this moment, Nangong Yun had already prepared several source energy cannons. When she saw the 5 mountain cultivators steadily advancing against the rain of bullets, she immediately raised her hand. Fire! Send them all back for me. The might of the source energy cannons could be imagined. More than a dozen light balls turned into a beam of bright white light, tearing apart and evaporating the hurricane god's shield on the puppet beast's bodies. The various defensive restrictions on the puppet beast's bodies didn't work as well. At least 100 puppet beasts were blasted into charcoal and broken pieces. This attack did not just destroy the mechanical beasts. The white light incinerated everything it came into contact with. As long as it was a body of flesh and blood, as long as it had water in its body, it would not be able to remain unscathed under such an attack. It was as easy as crushing dry weeds. Like a hot knife through butter. Nangong Yun saw that he had successfully stopped the other party from advancing, and immediately laughed proudly. These guys are not very strong. I think they are not even as strong as the troops of the 4 major cities. Hit him. Hit him hard. The source energy cannons fired again. Another wave of mechanical beast puppets was destroyed. Yuan Jinan's eyes were red. It wasn't easy to make these puppet beasts. Most of them were left behind by their ancestors. Now, in the face of such a terrifying attack, they were as fragile as paper. Every cannon blast not only destroyed the walking puppets, but also the foundation of the Divine Machine sect. He was already regretting participating in this battle. Of course, the Medicine King Valley, the Void Spirit Cave, and the Black Tortoise sect were all regretting following the Heavenly Sword sect to attack the Black Moon sect. On one hand, they had heavy firepower, and on the other hand, there was a strong poison gas. Now more and more disciples were being poisoned. This was a large loss to the sect. When had the Black Moon sect ever seen such a shocking scene? Chu Tian had only brought a few people and a few pieces of equipment, but he was actually able to suppress the cultivators of the 5 mountains. What are you standing there for? Chu Tian reprimanded the stunned Endless Een. Our firepower and ammunition are pretty much used up. Are you just going to stand here and watch, or are you waiting for them to break through? Only a fool would give up on this kind of good chance. Endless Een came to his senses and shouted, Heavenly Een Mountain successors, it is time to defend the Black Moon sect. Everyone prepare yourselves, charge with me. The Black Moon sect's cultivators came out in full force, showing the spirit of beating a drowning dog. 5 against 1 did have an overwhelming advantage, but the 5 spiritual mountains couldn't come out in full force. When their attack was blocked and their morale fell, they would have thoughts of retreating. The Black Moon sect could not retreat, they could only fight with their backs against the wall. Great Heavenly Een Array. Open. The Heavenly Een Mountain's protective array was opened. Tens of thousands of cultivators poured out like a tide. Each person was covered in the glow of cultivation techniques and spirit energy, as well as various secret techniques. This was a clear contrast to the chaotic cultivators of the 5 mountains. The Black Moon sect had around 200,000 cultivators. The 5 mountains had around 400,000 cultivators. There was a large disparity in numbers, but there was a clear difference in their fighting spirit. When the Black Moon sect came out in full force to fight to the death, the cultivators of the 5 mountains began to feel fear. There were some people who couldn't help wanting to retreat. Don't panic. Ling Ying quickly shouted. They are seeking death by opening their gates. This is a good chance to destroy the Black Moon sect in one fell swoop. We have more people and more experts than them. What is there to be afraid of? Charge with me. Although he said this, would it be that easy? The cultivators of the 5 mountains were poisoned, injured, and running away. The entire situation was very chaotic. The Black Moon sect cultivators were coming with ferocious momentum and there was no time to put up any defenses. The Black Tortoise sect's Jean Coué had a fierce expression. This will result in both sides suffering heavy losses. We can't fight anymore. No, it's too late to retreat now. We still have a chance. Ling Ying thought of something. The Heavenly Yin Mountains restrictions have all been removed. If we go around, we will destroy the strange weapons. Without the support of these weapons, we might have a chance of winning. The others looked at each other. All right. They could only do this. They had to risk it. Chu Tian was watching the situation from the Heavenly Yin Mountain, but Smart Brain sent out a warning. City Lord, there are many high-intensity signals approaching you. Should we make any plans to block or evade them? I didn't go find them and instead they came to me. Chu Tian laughed. No need, let them come. Roar, roar, roar. Several dozen demon beasts appeared in the center of the valley, all of them being powerful level 3 flying demon beasts. Each demon beast was carrying several cloaked figures, as well as the leaders of the 5 great sections. They went around the battlefield and headed for the Heavenly Yin Mountain, heading for Chu Tian's position. They were all true spirit realm experts? Even if these true experts were in the poison mist, they could still resist the poison, so most of them were fine. Die, you scoundrel! Ling Ying stood on the back of a golden eagle and charged at the very front. From a distance of several hundred meters, he thrust out a giant sword light. If one looked closely, they would find that this sword was formed from tens of thousands of swords. In the end, it became a giant sword that was several tens of meters long, and it flew towards Chu Tian's position with a destructive force. Such strong sword chi. The number 1 sword cultivator sect of the Great Zhou dynasty really does have some skill. Nangong Yun stepped off the ground and soared into the air, not dodging at all as he sent out a fist. A fire phoenix flew out from the burning body and collided with the huge sword. The two forces collided and shattered at the same time. Countless tiny sword chis pierced through the flames and fell on Nangong Yun's body like raindrops. Although Nangong Yun was forced to retreat again and again, it did not cause any damage. Ling Ying said with a cold smile, "You aren't people of the Great Zhou dynasty. Why do you care about the Great Zhou dynasty's matters? I'm afraid that whatever Great Zhou princess was also created by you guys." Chu Tian calmly laughed a few times. Even if we rope in the Black Moon sect to support the Great Zhou kingdom, it is still better than the Heavenly Sword sect colluding with the Eagle Burial Kingdom to divide the Great Zhou dynasty. What did you say? Yuan Jinnan and the other elders and cultivators of the sect were shocked. If my guess isn't wrong. Chu Tian's eyes swept over the cloaked consecrators of the Heavenly Sword sect. These are all generals of the Eagle Burial Kingdom. I think the Heavenly Sword sect has already been bribed, becoming spies for the Eagle Burial Kingdom. You have been kept in the dark without knowing anything. Perhaps you will regret it when your country perishes. How about you cooperate with my miracle city like the Black Moon sect and prosper together? The foreign consecrators that the Heavenly Sword sect found were people from the Eagle Burial Kingdom. The Eagle Burial Kingdom was one of the largest powers in the area and was ambitious to expand. If the Eagle Burial Kingdom's influence entered the Great Zhou country, the situation would be very complicated. Yuan Jinnan's voice filled with doubt and anger came from the mechanical armor. Ling Ying, is this true? How do you explain this? Don't speak nonsense. Ling Ying's face turned livid. Look at them. Not only is this person's weapon strange, his subordinates are all from different races, most likely from the Forest of Chaos. This is the so-called not of our race. We must have a different heart. Don't be fooled. These cloaked people controlled their demon beasts and several dozen fierce demon beasts attacked. Chu Tian was surrounded by experts from the forest, but he was lacking in numbers. If they directly fought, he would suffer a loss. The little fox wagged its tail and jumped out. Its body began to change shape, turning into a giant demonic fox. The Eagle Burial Kingdom's people were shocked to find that these shocking demon beasts had suddenly lost control at this moment. The little fox's power had easily seeped into these demon beasts. It had grown a lot in this period of time, and although it couldn't control several dozen powerful demon beasts at once, it was enough to make these demon beasts lose their minds and become wild. Roar! When the demon beasts went wild, they began to attack each other. Ling Ying's group had no choice but to give up their mounts and jump down to the ground. Don't leave a single one alive. Kill. Ling Ying slashed out with a sword that was like a river. Chu Tian pulled out the burning netherworld sword and turned into a streak of flame to meet it. The two swords collided in the air and instantly cancelled out all the energy. Damn, you think we're easy to bully? Nangong Yun loudly ordered the forest experts beside her, "Everyone follow me." Chapter 502. The Great Zhou's number 1 sect's vice sect master Ling Ying was in the 4th true spirit layer. He was only a bit weaker than Yin spirit. The Heavenly Sword sect was a sword cultivation sect that had been passed down for tens of thousands of years in the Great Zhou country, so whether it was cultivation techniques or secret techniques, they could be taken out even on the continent. How could this kind of person be easily dealt with? Ling Ying cultivated an orthodox imperial sword technique. In the past, Central State's limitless genius Chu Xinghe also inherited an imperial sword technique, but the Heavenly Sword sect's inheritance was stronger and didn't stick to the form. There were more variations, so naturally it was stronger. Ever since Chu Tian left Great Summer, he hadn't had a good fight. Ling Ying used a sword and Chu Tian also used a sword. Where could he find this kind of good chance? Ling Ying flicked his wrist and sword light flashed, shooting out several dozen swords. Each one was condensed from strong sword chi and they all attacked Chu Tian in a tricky way. So fast. Chu Tian's body flashed with flames as he quickly retreated with the netherworld flickering flame. The several dozen swords missed and turned back into a single large sword. The sword soared into the air and Chu Tian couldn't hide anymore. He had no choice but to reveal himself and raise his sword with both hands to block. The ground around him began to crack. The ancient fierce sword pressure overturned the seas and rivers, almost slapping Chu Tian into the ground. Sword! Chu Tian gave a low roar and the demon god's sword flew into the sky. The sword aura suddenly increased by 10 times, blocking Ling Ying's casual slash. When the sword glow was blocked, it shattered and turned into countless intersecting sword chi, covering Chu Tian like a large net. This was a net made of sword chi? Ling Ying's hands came together and the sword net suddenly shrank. This was enough to crush Diamond to pieces. Chu Tian's body was protected by the Starlight Immortal Body, so even the power that could grind Diamond to dust couldn't cut a single hair on his body. However, this sword chi net was like a real net, actually binding Chu Tian's body to the point where he couldn't move. Chu Tian felt like he was being bound by white lights and no matter how much strength he used, he couldn't break free in a short period of time. The netherworld ghost flame could burn all energy. Although he managed to ignite the sword chi around him in time, the burning speed was extremely slow. You dare to challenge the Heavenly Rapier sect's swordsmanship with such little ability? I don't have time to play with you. That Ling Ying revealed an extremely disdainful expression. His right hand quickly sheathed his sword and his left hand formed a sword finger, minor phaseless void sword finger. He flicked his fingernail. Bang! Chu Tian's body suddenly erupted with sword chi. Even with the strong Starlight Immortal Body's defense, under this attack, it instantly dimmed. Chu Tian was sent flying by the violent energy and he heavily fell to the ground. Ling Ying's pupils shrank slightly. Why didn't he die? What kind of peerless defensive technique was this? It could even block the minor phaseless sword finger. The netherworld ghost flame exploded, instantly burning away the sword chi around him. Chu Tian stood in the raging flames and his body had already become a fist bigger. The flames covered his body like armor, making him look like a flaming demon at first glance. Good sword art. It's a pity you haven't practiced it enough. Is the Heavenly Rapier sect's supreme minor phaseless sword something an ant like you can study? Although it can't be practiced to the large success realm like Senior Brother Sect Master, it's more than enough to kill a small character like you. Give it a try then. Chu Tian's figure turned into 6 and he immediately used his strongest sword move. First eat my move, Netherworld Clone Slash. Minor phaseless void sword finger. Ling Ying flicked his finger to attack, but he couldn't see the trajectory at all. Chu Tian's clones were hit by the sword chi at the same time and 5 of them were destroyed on the spot. The main body was sent flying and fell to the ground. He staggered back several steps and even the flame demon transformation was broken. So strong. He had never seen this kind of strange sword art before. Minor phaseless sword, colorless and formless, it was impossible to see, it was like its name. Ling Ying's sword art looked very simple, but it consumed a lot of spirit energy. He was in a rush to kill Chu Tian, so he didn't hesitate to use the phaseless sword twice. Who would have thought that this heavenly rapier sex secret technique wouldn't be able to injure this young brat? The minor phaseless sword was a peerless secret technique. Not to mention that Ling Ying's cultivation was above Chu Tian's. If this matter was spread out, no one would believe it. Chu Tian was also secretly shocked. This was his first time encountering a cultivation technique he couldn't see through. The minor phaseless sword did not have a trajectory and each time it was used, it would directly hit its target. Ling Ying's void sword finger against a normal person would definitely explode their body from the inside out. Because the Starlight Immortal body had been cultivated to the perfection realm, its defensive abilities had already penetrated into his flesh and blood, penetrating into every cell, so it could block the might of the void sword finger. Otherwise, no matter how high the defensive technique was, it wouldn't be able to block this strange and formless attack. Chu Tian had underestimated the Great Zhou country and this era. Minor phaseless void sword slash. Ling Ying's spirit energy filled his body and a sword source spirit appeared on the surface of his body, releasing a strong sword intent. With a flick of his wrist, the sword tip flew out from the ground. He still couldn't see the trajectory clearly. Danger! Chu Tian instinctively felt danger and quickly strengthened his defenses. Sure enough, a formless and formless sword glow pierced him. That formless and formless sword chi scattered the Starlight Immortal body's power and Chu Tian staggered back several steps. Blood leaked from the corner of his mouth and he was injured even with the Starlight Immortal body. You still want to fight? Ling Ying's forehead was covered in sweat, but his aura had reached its peak. He raised his sword and pointed it at Chu Tian. You can't even dodge my sword and you can't even get close to me. What do you have to fight me with? Hey, stop bluffing. Chu Tian wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. If you could easily kill me, why would you waste your breath? You just want to buy some time to recover. Can this sword art really take my life in your hands? Ling Ying's eyes filled with rage, like he had been greatly insulted. Chu Tian continued to say, this sword art is too much of a waste in the heavenly sword mountain. It's better if I dig it up and personally practice it. It'll be good for it, don't you think so? Ling Ying raised his sword and gathered his spirit energy again. When he was about to use the mysterious sword art again, he suddenly saw a glow in Chu Tian's eyes. Ling Ying suddenly felt a strong sense of danger approaching. He didn't even have time to react before the ground around him suddenly split open. 18 dark golden figures charged out. These were the 18 divine servants. The 18 divine servants had been strengthened and each one had reached the third true spirit layer. Now that they attacked unexpectedly, there was a chance they could kill him. Small phaseless sword slash. Ling Ying's reaction was very fast, slashing at 19 targets with a single slash. The small phaseless sword was not a single target sword art. This sword art was ever-changing and formless, therefore it wasn't strange for it to attack many targets at once. Only, the more targets it attacked, the weaker the sword move became. The 18 divine servants were all knocked back. Chu Tian was not injured at all from this slash. He had been waiting for this chance for a long time. Chu Tian flew out from the ground and a streak of sword chi instantly swept across Ling Ying like a rainbow. His body was split in half with a tremble. Ling Ying struggled a few times before revealing an unwilling expression. Whether it was cultivation or cultivation technique, he surpassed this person, so why did he still lose? Chu Tian held his chest and took 2 breaths. There was a green glow coming from his fingers, slowly healing his injuries. He didn't use his main source spirit in this battle not just to be low-key, but also because he felt this kind of troublesome opponent. He hadn't met one in a long, long time, so fighting this battle would increase his martial arts mental state by quite a bit. Nangong Yun was fighting with the Black Tortoise sect master Jin Kuei. The great Zhou country was still a large country. Just like the Heavenly Sword sect's Ling Ying, the other sect masters were not normal people. Nangong Yun's cultivation was a bit higher than Chu Tian's, and his source spirit cultivation technique was at the peak. If he didn't use his main source spirit, Nangong Yun's battle strength was much higher than Chu Tian's, but he could only fight Jin Kuei to a draw. The other three sect masters' battle strength wasn't simple either. The little fox controlled several demon beasts to tie down the Eagle Burial Kingdom generals. Looking at the overall situation, Chu Tian's side was at a disadvantage. The forest experts he brought from Miracle City were clearly weaker than them. Go! The 18 divine servants surrounded the leaders of the sections. The 18 divine servants were all in the third true spirit layer. Not only were they in the third true spirit layer, they were all very hard to deal with, not something these fellows could easily deal with. Nangong Yun instantly felt the pressure on her decrease. Chu Tian raised his sword and charged at the Eagle Burial Kingdom generals. The sword glow cut open the cloak of a mysterious person, and the spirit beast revealed its true appearance. Open your eyes wide and look. This is the helper the Heavenly Sword sect found. Chu Tian's sword swung faster and faster. Several spirit beasts were cut down by his sword. When the Medicine King Valley, Divine Machine Hall, Void Spirit Cave, and Black Tortoise sect saw this, their expressions all changed. If it was just a few spirit beasts, it wouldn't be strange. Now that they found out that these mysterious people were all spirit beasts, looking at their clothes and totems, they were all the same. It was impossible for the Heavenly Sword sect to recruit this many people. This was simply an army placed in the Heavenly Sword sect. Do you see this? Chu Tian shouted while slashing. The Heavenly Sword sect is the true scourge of the great Zhou country. If you continue to help them, even if you destroy the Black Moon sect, do you think you can escape? The great Zhou country will become a pasture for the Eagle Burial Kingdom sooner or later. Have your people put down their weapons? I promise I won't kill them. Don't believe him. A spirit beast roared out in a hoarse voice. They are people from the Forest of Chaos. The Black Moon sect has already colluded with the Forest of Chaos. Their motives aren't pure. They are just trying to confuse us now. Chu Tian gave a cold snort, seeking death. Spatial movement. Chu Tian raised the flaming sword and directly cut this person in half. The others were shocked when they saw this. This young man actually didn't use his full strength when fighting Ling Ying. Kill! At this time, a wolf race expert wildly slashed out with his dual blades. Chu Tian's flaming netherworld sword charged forward, completely ignoring the attacks. The sword in his hand was like a graceful streak as it flew out. The wolf race expert was shocked to find that the blade glow was easily bounced off Chu Tian's body. It was like a drop of water hitting a rock, not causing any damage at all. The other side's sword glow was coming closer and closer in his eyes. Ah! The wolf race expert gave a pitiful cry. Chu Tian was like a rainbow as he slashed through the blade glow, instantly piercing through his chest from the ground to the sky. The netherworld ghost flame wildly surged out, turning his body into countless black pieces that fell to the ground. If you stubbornly resist. Chu Tian stabilized himself and raised his sword. He was filled with killing intent. This is the result of all of you. The expressions of the sect leaders fell. Go! Wanna run? Chu Tian moved forward and slashed at Yuan Zhenan's mechanical armor. With a crackling sound, he was forced back to his original position. I'm afraid you won't be able to run. The 18 divine servants, Chu Tian, and Nangong Yun. The 20 of them attacked together. The entire battle lasted for less than 3 minutes. These sect leaders, the people with the highest status in Great Zhou, were all heavily injured by Chu Tian. They were all lying on the ground like dead dogs, unable to move. You're wild, you should be wild again. Nangong Yun kicked Jin Kuei a few times. If you have the guts, stand up and fight with this old lady for another 300 rounds. Nangong, that's enough. Tie them up immediately. Yes, boss. Chu Tian stood on the heavenly Yin mountain and looked into the distance as he said, "From today onwards, the great Zhou country will change." Chapter 503. At the foot of the heavenly Yin mountain, the 6 great sects were in a chaotic battle. Endless Yin led the Black Moon sect to scatter the disciples of the other great sections. "All of you stop. All of you stop for me. Your sect masters are in my hands. Put down your weapons and surrender, otherwise I'll kill them and then kill you all." Chu Tian set up a giant loudspeaker on the mountain and the rolling sound waves were like thunder. "Father will do what he says, please don't test my patience." While he was speaking, Nangong Yun pushed the tied-up people to the cliff in a row. The sect leaders and elders of these mountain sects had all been captured. This was a destructive blow to the morale of the 5 spiritual mountain cultivators. The situation was already bad, and now that their sect masters had been captured, how could they still fight? Chu Tian shouted into the loudspeaker, "This matter is purely a plot by the Heavenly Sword sect. The Heavenly Sword sect has colluded with the Eagle Burial Kingdom. In order to obtain more benefits and resources, they have allied with other races to sweep through all the large and small sects of the great Zhou country. This kind of despicable act is simply the punishment of the heavens." Nangong Yun hung up the corpses of the Eagle Burial Kingdom generals. "Open your dog eyes wide and look, these are the consecrators of the Eagle Burial Kingdom. We have already found enough tokens and evidence on their bodies. These fellows are the generals of the Eagle Burial Kingdom. The Heavenly Sword sect has betrayed the great Zhou country, so the Heavenly Sword sect is the true enemy." The crowd instantly fell into chaos. The 4 great sects looked at the Heavenly Sword sect with vigilant eyes. Nonsense. The Heavenly Sword sect has existed for 10,000 years and is the head of the great Zhou country sects. How could they join the Eagle Burial Kingdom? The Heavenly Sword sect people instantly panicked. If what Chu Tian said was true, the Heavenly Sword sect would be enraged and these Heavenly Sword sect disciples would suffer a calamity. Chu Tian shouted into the loudspeaker, "Whether you believe it or not, the evidence is like a mountain. I'll say it again, stopping at the edge of the cliff can be forgiven, but resisting to the end will not be tolerated. I'll give you 10 more seconds to put down your weapons, otherwise I'll kill your sect masters and elders first before sending you to see your ancestors." Everyone looked at each other in blank dismay. In the end, they all threw down their weapons. Chu Tian let out a long sigh of relief. He had finally dealt with these fellows. He immediately ordered, "Endless Yin, immediately tie them up. Treat the injured and wait for the poisoned, don't let them die." The crisis of the mysterious dark sect was successfully resolved. They had captured over 300,000 captives. Everyone in the Xianyin sect looked after them together to prevent these people from causing trouble. Chu Tian didn't come to the great Zhou country to start a war, he only saw the great Zhou country's rich talent reserve, the great Zhou country's good location, the great Zhou country's rich resources, and the great Zhou country's unexplored market. Chu Tian was here to develop the great Zhou country, so he didn't need to kill too much. He immediately told the company to prepare medicine and antidotes, as well as enough food, saving the lives of these captives first. Go in quickly. Damn it, hurry up for this old lady." Nangong Yun pushed, kicked, and hit like a beggar, sending the 4 sect leaders in front of Chu Tian. "Do you believe that I won't break your legs? How many times have I said it? Don't be so violent." Chu Tian seemed like a different person as he lectured in a serious tone. "We're all civilized people, so we should use virtue to win people over. Do you understand?" Nangong Yun rolled her eyes. "I'm sorry, I didn't manage my subordinates properly and made you suffer." Chu Tian waved his hand at the 4 of them. "Nangong, why aren't you bringing them tea to apologize?" Nangong Yun's eyes popped out. "Boss, are you mistaken? You actually want me to apologize to them? This old lady not castrating them is already courteous enough." Yuan Zhenan's group of 4 were all famous people in Great Zhou. Nangong Yun's words made them feel a chill. Chu Tian helplessly waved his hand. "All right, I have no intention of making it hard for you, so let's have an open and honest chat. I'm prepared to rebuild the Great Zhou royal family and push the Great Zhou princess Qin Bingyu onto the throne as the Great Zhou queen. As long as you're willing to support me, I can let you go and all grudges will be written off. Who do you think you are? Jean Kuei looked up with a swollen face. His eyes were red as he gritted his teeth. What qualifications does an outsider have to care about the great Zhou country's matters? You have guts, you're a man. Chu Tian narrowed his eyes as he spoke with a laugh, but he gave Nangong Yun a look. Nangong Yun charged forward and placed Jean Kuei on the ground. She raised her boot and kicked his crotch. This 2-meter-tall giant let out a bear-like howl. His body curled up as he painfully rolled around on the ground. Nangong Yun fiercely picked him up and pulled out a short knife from her waist. This kick is only a lesson. If you dare not give me face again, this old lady will cut off your 2 toys and put them in your mouth. Jean Kuei angrily roared, if you have the guts, then give me a quick death. The Black Tortoise sect can be killed but not humiliated. Alright. Nangong Yun angrily raised her knife and was about to attack. Nangong, stop, quickly stop. How could you forget what I said to you before? We civilized people have to use virtue to win people over, we can't use force to solve problems. Chu Tian stopped Nangong Yun. I respect unyielding heroes the most, so don't make it hard for this sect, Master Jean. Chu Tian's eyes fell onto the others. What do you guys think? The Void Spirit Cave's Gu Lianshan said with a calm face. Brat, why do you need to say so much? We are lucky to have the previous sect master's trust, allowing us to control the 10,000-year-old sect. If we submit, how will we face our ancestors? That's right. Medicine King Valley's Wang Tian Yun lightly said, if you think you can force us to submit, then you are underestimating us too much. The godly machine hall's Yuan Jinan was filled with righteous indignation. If you want to kill us, then do as you please. They were all hard bones. This was a bit difficult to deal with. Nangong Yun's eyebrows were about to explode. She did not believe that if she taught these fellows a lesson, they would be as hard as they were now. Don't be nervous, don't misunderstand. Chu Tian stood up with a sincere smile. You must have made a mistake. Did I say I wanted you to submit? No, my territory still has a lot of things waiting for me to do. There is also a lot of resources and land waiting to be conquered. Forgive me for speaking bluntly, but a place like Great Zhou, I really do not place it in my eyes. Then what do you want? I just want to cooperate with you all. Chu Tian calmly explained without any threatening tone. Right now the Great Summer Country and the Warhounds Plains have a close relationship with Miracle Commerce, but the Great Summer Country and the Warhounds Plains are a bit weak. If the Great Zhou Country can join this alliance, we will have enough confidence and strength to expand into the surroundings, connecting all the nearby large and small kingdoms, finally forming a barrier to block the Eagle Burial Kingdom in the north. Whether you believe it or not, the matter of the Heavenly Sword sect colluding with the Eagle Burial Kingdom is an ironclad fact. Since the Eagle Burial Kingdom has already infiltrated Great Zhou several years ago, I think Great Zhou is not far from war. The Eagle Burial Kingdom was a very strong country. In just a short 10-20 years, the Eagle Burial Kingdom had wildly expanded their territory, swallowing at least 20 large and small kingdoms, and they were still wildly expanding. The Great Zhou country was stronger than the surrounding kingdoms, so the Eagle Burial Kingdom did not easily bite this hard bone. However, everyone knew that the Eagle Burial Kingdom would invade Great Zhou sooner or later. The matter of the Heavenly Sword sect colluding with the Eagle Burial Kingdom had provoked everyone's nerves. As the leader of the Great Zhou country, the Eagle Burial Kingdom could even bribe the Heavenly Sword sect, showing their intent to invade. Perhaps pretending to be deaf and dumb wouldn't solve the problem. Chu Tian saw that everyone was deep in thought, so he immediately continued. Back then, the Great Zhou royal clan was slaughtered by the Heavenly Sword sect. Although you all participated, as long as you can help us rebuild the Great Zhou royal clan and help us deal with the Heavenly Sword sect that colluded with outsiders, we can forget about this. This is just your side of the story. Why should we help you? That's right, the Great Zhou people will take care of the Great Zhou country's matters. You want to interfere as an outsider and support a new power in Great Zhou? Don't you have evil intentions? Nangong Yun couldn't help saying, you're simply refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. It's natural for everyone to have doubts. The Black Moon Sex in spirit was like this in the past. Do you know why she changed her mind? In spirit? Why would a little doll like her that hasn't even grown up for several years move? She was just bewitched by you. That's not necessarily true. Chu Tian didn't have time to waste with them. Nangong, bring them to Miracle City and have a look at Miracle City for a few days. If I return to the Heavenly Yin Mountains after a few days and you still think that I don't have pure intentions of occupying the Great Zhou country, then just let them go. Chu Tian won't force anyone. Nangong Yun quickly said, if I go back, who will go find Big Sister Bing and the others? I don't know where they are right now. Have Vivian come over, it'll be easier for her to search with her spatial abilities. Alright, don't say anymore, quickly go. Alright. Nangong Yun had no choice but to bring them to the transport tower. Chu Tian found Endless Yin to ask. From Endless Yin's description, Chen Bingyu and the others should have gone to a place called the Death Ice Field, in the Great Zhou country. The Death Ice Field was a place rarely visited by people. It was high above sea level and had a cold climate, with little life. It was said that the Chen family's ancestral land was there. Yoda's prophecy should not be wrong. They hadn't returned for several days, perhaps they had encountered some trouble. But it didn't matter. Since they knew the general location, it shouldn't be hard to find them. Not long after Nangong Yun returned to Miracle City, Vivian was sent over to report. Big brother Chu Tian, you're finally willing to bring me out to do things. Chu Tian looked at Vivian and said in a surprised voice, your cultivation seems to have increased. That's right, I'm in the 5th true spirit layer. Vivian looked up with a bit of pride. Even if we meet strong bad people now, I can help Big Brother beat them. That's great. Chu Tian nodded in satisfaction. There's no time to lose, let's go. Chapter 504. Several dozen forest experts were left in the Heavenly Yin Mountain. Endless Yin had to make arrangements to attack the Heavenly Sword Mountain as soon as possible because the Heavenly Sword Mountain was colluding with the Eagle Burial Kingdom. This time, if they didn't take care of the Heavenly Sword Sect as soon as possible, perhaps the Heavenly Sword Sect would ally with the Eagle Burial Kingdom. If this matter developed to this point, it would be a bad matter. In addition, the rebuilding of the Great Zhou dynasty's royal family would mean reshuffling and splitting of interests. Who would be willing to give up their own resources and territory? The best method was to use a justifiable reason to get rid of a major faction. That way, the additional territory and resources could be taken over, and the other factions could also benefit from it. This was a situation where everyone was happy. There was only so much that Chu Tian could do. The situation on Qin Bingyu's side was unclear, so she had no time to worry about it. She had to move out as soon as possible. When Vivian reached the rank 5 True Spirit, his strength had increased by a large amount. Although the Great Zhou country was a bit larger than the Great Summer country, in front of Vivian's spatial ability, this bit of distance was nothing. After a few teleportations, the two arrived at the Death Ice Field. Wow, it's so beautiful here. This mountain peak stood on high ground, and the spiritual veins and resources on the ground were mainly of the ice element. Thus, it attracted a large amount of ice element, which caused this area to be surrounded by ice and snow for thousands of years. It was empty, silent, and cold. Looking from afar, the terrain was not flat, with undulating mountain ranges and snowy ridges. There was basically no vegetation covering it, and it was a unique and magnificent snowy scenery. Vivian couldn't help but shiver. Strange, this place seems to be too cold. It's actually faintly affecting me through my protective essence energy. That's right, the ice element is too dense. Chu Tian also felt this cold and he had to circulate his spirit energy to resist it. If my guesses aren't wrong, there is a rare ice vein under the Death Ice Field that gathers a very strong ice energy. This cold is not caused by normal temperatures, so it can directly invade a person's body. If one doesn't have a true spirit cultivation, perhaps their spirit energy would freeze in less than a day. There is no way to stay here for long, so it's called the Death Ice Field. Big Sister Bingyu and Yin's spirit are here? Vivian said gloomily. The ice field is not small, and the communication signal does not cover this area. When will we find him? Have you forgotten? We have an expert tracker. A snow-white fox crawled out and sat on his shoulder, wagging its tail proudly. Apart from this fox, was there anyone else who could do such a thing? Vivian suddenly realized that she had forgotten about the little fox again. Little fellow, we have a lot of things to do, so don't waste time. Chu Tian patted the little fox's shoulder and said, the most important thing right now is to find them quickly. I'll reward you well when we get back. The little fox nodded in satisfaction. It closed its eyes and sensed for a while before pointing in a direction with its claws. Vivian immediately placed a snow-white hand on Chu Tian's shoulder, and the two of them directly jumped 100 miles. The death ice field covered a large area, and there were frequent snowstorms, death cold currents, and the like. If one wanted to travel on foot, it would be very troublesome. With the ability to teleport, it would be much more convenient. The death icy field was big enough for ordinary people. However, it was too small for Vivian, who could travel hundreds of miles in an instant. Under the little fox's guidance, Vivian used space movement a few times and finally had some results. On the north side of the death ice field, there was an extremely large ice lake. The entire lake was covered in blue ice, like a smooth mirror on the ground. In the land of ice rain, there were blue energy flows surging. This was the location of the eye of the ice vein. The energy aura on the surface of the ice lake was even stronger, and even a true spirit cultivator couldn't resist it. That's the place we're looking for. Vivian found an ice castle in the center of the ice lake. It looked very old and waves of ice energy were being released from it. Look, isn't that Yoda? There was a green dragon coiled around the ice castle. It was over 10 meters long and had a majestic aura, looking very spirited. Although most of its scales were covered in ice, there was still a strong pressure coming from its body. It couldn't be wrong. This was the green dragon that Yoda had transformed into. Vivian looked over it a few times. Prophet Yoda seems to be injured. Although the green dragon was majestic, its body had suffered many injuries, especially on its neck and abdomen. Large patches of scales had disappeared, and its flesh seemed to have just recovered. There were at least dozens of injuries all over its body. It was obvious that it had experienced a tough battle. Let's go. Chu Tian stopped Vivian. Looking at Yoda's situation, they have clearly met a strong enemy. There's no need to rush out, let's look at the situation first. After saying this, Chu Tian released the divine servants from the sealed scrolls and hid nearby to observe the situation. After around a few hours, a group of people appeared on the ice field. There were over 20 of them, and they were all spirit beasts. There were a few humans at the front, and from their clothes, they should be high-level members of the Heavenly Sword sect. Vivian was instantly excited. Big Brother was right, they're already here. Chu Tian made a shushing gesture. Let's keep watching. Old thing, do you really have to resist to the end? A gray-haired sword cultivator wearing a crown stared coldly at the green dragon. 4 or 5 swords circled around him at high speed. He was not angry, but his aura was imposing. You don't have much power left. Do you really want to throw your life away for this? The green dragon gave a low roar as flames appeared in its throat. Its wings created a large amount of wind and snow, releasing a sharp aura that swept in all directions. Seeking death. The sword cultivator flew into the air and his hands formed sword fingers, small phaseless sword finger. The scales on the green dragon's neck exploded once again as large amounts of blood and flesh sprayed out. The green dragon ignored this and quickly flapped its wings to charge forward. The 2030 spirit beast experts all moved. They first used a barrier to protect the sword cultivator and then used various slowing, numbing, and all kinds of strange witchcraft techniques on the green dragon. Even if the green dragon's strength was shocking, it was still very strenuous for it to fight against all of them. Chu Tian tightly knit his brows when he saw this. Small phaseless sword? It didn't need to be said to know that it was most likely the Heavenly Sword sect Master Ling Wanjian. From the strength Ling Wanjian displayed, this person's cultivation had reached the peak 5th true spirit layer, and his small phaseless sword was a level higher than Ling Ying's. The spirit beast experts weren't simple either. There were 4 in the 6th true spirit layer among the 20 people. Although the dragon's defense was very strong and it was hard for these people to break through, it was more than enough to restrain Yoda. Ling Wanjian's cultivation was not high, but the small phaseless sword was a very strong attack technique. Even if he was in the peak 5th true spirit layer, it was enough for him to pierce through the dragon's scales. Yoda had spent several days defending, so it was clear that it was very strenuous for him now. Yoda wasn't a real green dragon. His dragon form was merely an illusion created by a druid's secret technique. Thus, he had to expend a lot of energy to maintain his dragon form at all times. As the battle dragged on, he naturally began to feel powerless. Vivian was very anxious. "Big brother Chu Tian, let's make a move." "Calm down first," Chu Tian said in a low voice. "The small phaseless sword is very dangerous. Ling Wanjian's sword art has reached the large success realm, so it will be dangerous if we act rashly. Make your preparations first. As long as the time is right, we'll immediately attack." "Alright." The green dragon faced Ling Wanjian's increasingly fierce attacks and could no longer take the initiative, so the battle became more and more disadvantageous. The wounds on his body quickly increased, and the green dragon was a dragon of life, so its recovery was very strong, but it couldn't keep up with this kind of damage. Of course, Ling Wanjian had consumed a lot of energy, but he could feel his advantage becoming more and more clear. He became more and more confident, so he did not hold back at all and wildly attacked with all his strength. "I want to see how long you can resist." Small phaseless sword rain. Ling Wanjian wildly released his spirit energy and his 10 fingers released their power together. This was a wave of sword finger attacks that consumed most of Ling Wanjian's strength. It made the green dragon give a pitiful cry as its body was covered in blood, and it was sent flying. "All right. Now's the time." Vivian sent the 18 divine servants to Ling Wanjian. Suddenly, 18 figures appeared beside Ling Wanjian. They attacked Ling Wanjian at an extremely fast speed. "Damn, there's an ambush." Ling Wanjian used his spirit energy to send several divine servants flying with a single sword finger. The spirit beast experts gave up on restraining the green dragon and flew into the air to block the remaining divine servants. When their attention was attracted, Vivian released her spatial energy again. Chu Tian appeared behind Ling Wanjian and stabbed out with all his strength. Ling Wanjian quickly sent out a sword chi in the air. Ding! It made Chu Tian feel the netherworld sword tremble. This fierce strength almost sent the netherworld sword flying. "You want to sneak attack me with this bit of strength?" Ling Wanjian's face turned fierce as he roared, "Let's die together." Ling Wanjian condensed a sword chi, and when he was about to cut Chu Tian in half, he felt another spatial fluctuation appear beside him. There was actually someone else. Ling Wanjian tried to change the direction of the sword chi, but as soon as he moved, there was a spatial energy that fell on his body. It was like a sharp blade was slicing him from head to toe. Vivian's attack spatial cut. The timing of this attack was perfect. After Ling Wanjian released a large move, he pushed back the divine servants and then pushed back Chu Tian. He could no longer use the small phaseless sword, and Vivian's spatial attack had already been used before the teleportation array arrived. Vivian's teleportation array covered the spatial energy fluctuations, so when Ling Wanjian tried to push back Vivian, he didn't know that the killing blow had already arrived. From head to toe, Ling Wanjian was directly cut in half. This peak expert of the Great Zhou dynasty had actually died here for no reason. Chu Tian said in a somewhat regretful voice, "You were too fast, you could have cut him in half and kept his life. It's such a pity that we couldn't obtain the small phaseless sword." Chu Tian was very interested in the Heavenly Sword sect's small phaseless sword. The sect master and vice sect master had all died, so it would be hard for him to obtain the sect's secret art. "You're finally here." Yoda let out a long sigh of relief. He had already reached his limit. Chapter 505. After Ling Wanjian was taken care of, the other eagle burial experts weren't a problem. With the 18 divine servants and Vivian working together, they were quickly taken care of. "Yoda, are you all right?" Chu Tian put away his sword and walked over. Yoda had returned to his small and thin appearance. The green dragon's injuries didn't directly affect his body, but it still injured Yoda's vitality. However, with Chu Tian's methods and Miracle City's abilities, this bit of injury didn't count for anything. What about the others? The people we brought from Miracle City have all died. Yoda's expression was very serious. Yin's spirit is currently heavily injured and Chen Bingyu is in the Ice Palace. The situation isn't very good. What happened? I'll go take a look. Yin's spirit was lying in the Ice Palace. She had been pierced in the chest by Ling Wanjian in a single move, and although her cultivation wasn't weak, she didn't have any battle strength left. Chu Tian saw her lying on the ice platform. Although she was weak, she wouldn't die, so he casually teased her. I say, little sister Zong, you are the leader of one of the 6 spiritual mountains. How could you not take a single blow? Pei, the death servant wasn't completely refined. Otherwise, how could this one be defeated so easily? Yin's spirit's pale face became even paler as she sat on the platform without moving, just like an ice doll. This sect master almost lost her life and you're still taunting me. Calm down, calm down. I'll remember your merit this time. Chu Tian could only reveal an embarrassed smile. Why isn't Big Sister Bing here? How is she now? Chen Bingyu isn't here. Come with me. Yin's spirit and Yoda led Chu Tian and Vivian into the ancient Ice Palace ruins. The ruins were much larger than they imagined, with ancient murals sealed in ice and relics scattered in the palace, as well as tall ice sculptures. These were all signs of the ancient people's lives. Chu Tian looked around as he walked. This is the Chen family's ancestral land? Why would their home be in this damn place? The great Zhou legend might not be completely correct. Yin's spirit said as she walked. The Ice Palace is a very ancient inheritance. Its history and background are not inferior to the 6 spiritual mountains, only it has not been known to the world for many years. However, it was different from the 6 great spiritual mountains. The Ice Palace's inheritance had extremely high requirements for the bloodline of the inheritors. Only a group of people with special bloodlines could accept it. As time passed, they would form a family. Because of the sudden change in the environment or some other disaster, a large number of people in the Ice Palace died, and a small group left the ice field, forming the Shen family. So that's how it is. This place was not only the ancestral land of the great Zhou Shen family, but also a very important place of inheritance. The Shen family, from an inconspicuous family, only used a few decades to quickly grow, and finally became a royal family of the great Zhou dynasty that even the 6 great powers feared. One of the most important reasons was because of their deep heritage. Once the Shen family's direct descendants or important targets of cultivation reached adulthood, they would all be sent to the Ice Palace to activate their bloodline and cultivate the supreme techniques recorded in the Ice Palace. That was why the great Zhou royal family could obtain great development in a short period of time. City Lord, we're here. Yoda walked to the center of the Ice Palace. This is the core of the Ice Palace and the entire ice field. Because the energy is too strong, it is very dangerous, so please be prepared. Chu Tian looked up and found that there was a giant palace door in front of him. The incomparably large palace door was made of some kind of ice crystal, with 36 ice dragons coiled around it. There were also 2 large and dignified ice statues standing on the left and right, like dignified door gods. Just from the aura alone, one could feel a strong sense of intimidation. Open it. With Chu Tian's order, Yoda opened the ice-sealed door and a visible stream of energy came out. Although he was already prepared, it was still like millions of ice needles piercing his body. The blood in his body instantly turned cold, and even his spirit energy stopped flowing. Such strong energy. Even if it was a true spirit cultivator, if they weren't prepared, they would still be injured by this energy. At this time, Chu Tian's eyes turned white and spatial energy covered his body. This cold stream was very strong, but it wasn't enough to break through the spatial barrier of the void escaping. Rather than forcefully resisting this energy, it was better to use the void escaping to avoid it, saving more energy this way. Vivian walked in first and immediately cried out in surprise, "My God, what kind of place is this?" This main hall was a giant ice cave with a thick layer of ice that was over 100 meters deep. It was a light blue color, and the deeper one went, the thicker the color, giving off a very clear feeling. This was the rare 10,000-year-old profound ice crystal. It was as hard as a level 3 rare metal. It also contained a very strong ice-attributed energy, so it could be used to make excellent quality equipment. The deeper one went, the higher the quality of the profound ice crystal, so it was definitely an unimaginable treasure. Of course, the profound ice crystal was precious, but what attracted people's attention was not these things. There was a whirlpool of energy visible to the naked eye in this 100-meter deep ice cave. The blue and white energy was moving around like a liquid. Ice Spirit Frozen Spring? City Lord is wise. This is the Ice Spirit Frozen Spring. Yoda said with a nod, "This spring is a natural spiritual object. The Chen family's descendants can use this spring to stimulate their bloodline power. Chen Bingyu can quickly increase her cultivation base. She actually chose to jump into the spring." What? Vivian was shocked. She directly jumped in. Although it was called a spring, it couldn't be considered spring water. The essence of the Ice Spirit Frozen Spring was a condensed form of energy, and since it was energy, it was very dangerous. Even if a spirit transformation cultivator fell into the Ice Spirit Frozen Spring, their chances of survival would not be higher than a mouse falling into the wrong river. How long has she been in there? It's already been 3 days and 3 nights. Chu Tian said to Vivian, "Your cultivation base is higher than mine. Can you use your spatial energy to cut open space and take her out? The energy in here is too strong." Vivian closed her eyes to sense it, but she helplessly shook her head. "My current cultivation base can't resist this kind of interference, so I can't control space. What should we do?" Everyone fell into deep thought. This was the core of the Death Ice field. The energy here was not something normal people could imagine. Even with Chen Bingyu's special ice-attributed bloodline, it would be hard for her to stay here for this long. Chu Tian walked in front of the ice cave. "Since it's like this, there's no other way. I'll personally go in." "You can't, City Lord. Chen Bingyu has the protection of her bloodline, but Sir City Lord doesn't have any innate talent. With your current cultivation base, I'm afraid your soul will be frozen and you won't be able to live." "There's no need to worry." Chu Tian shook his head and said, "With the little fox's help, I at least have the ability to escape." Yoda wanted to try and persuade him again. Chu Tian didn't even listen as he jumped in. As he continued to fall, Chu Tian could clearly feel that the cold aura of death was becoming stronger and stronger. It had already broken through the void escaping barrier. There was no sound at all. Chu Tian fell into the Ice Spirit Cold Spring and there wasn't much resistance. After a bit of a buffer, countless terrifying cold streams began to cut Chu Tian's body like ice-cold knives. With this kind of energy, even if he used the Starlight Immortal body, he wouldn't be able to last long. Not to mention that Chu Tian's cultivation base wasn't high. Fox. The little fox used its ability and actually created a small barrier, causing the surrounding energy to change directions and charge at the little fox. Chu Tian was surrounded by starlight as he used his spirit energy to move forward. He was like a diver slowly moving underwater. Although he had the little fox's help, it still consumed a lot of energy. Chu Tian calculated that he only had 3 minutes at most. Because his divine sense couldn't spread out, it was unknown how long it would take if he used normal methods. But the little fox gave him a prompt. Chu Tian followed the little fox's direction and saw that at the bottom of the Ice Spirit Cold Spring, there was a ball of dazzling white light. "This is a ball of flame." Chu Tian's expression slightly changed. This was definitely not a normal flame, rather it was a spiritual flame born from a spiritual vein after tens of thousands of years. This thing was definitely a heaven-defying treasure. The source of the entire Ice Spirit Cold Spring was this ball of flame. "Found it." Chen Bingyu floated in front of the flame. It was like she was attracted by a magnet as the flame slowly entered her body. Chen Bingyu was clearly not dead, but she couldn't move at all. "Damn, it's taking over my body." Chu Tian found that the spiritual flame contained a strong innate will. It was trying to take over Chen Bingyu's body and obtain its own flesh and blood body. If it succeeded in taking over her body, Chen Bingyu's consciousness would completely disappear. Then there was no difference between her being dead. Chu Tian circulated his elemental energy and was about to swim over, but at this moment, a thick killing intent was suddenly emitted from within the white lotus-like throbbing ice flame. It caused the surrounding ice spirit frozen spring to surge, and several white figures shuttled back and forth. When Chu Tian observed with rapt attention, his heart suddenly sank. Ice flood dragons. Several ice flood dragons. These were several ice flood dragons that were born from the ice spirit cold spring. The entire ice spirit cold spring was born from the mysterious flame, and these ice flood dragons were born from the ice spirit cold spring, so they were controlled by the flame's will. Each ice flood dragon had a strong strength. It was not something that Chu Tian could fight against. Not to mention that Chu Tian couldn't use his strength in the depths of the ice spirit cold spring, but these ice flood dragons were like fish in water. How could he fight in this kind of environment? There was no time to think. The ice flood dragons surrounded Chu Tian at the same time, and one of them charged at him. Chapter 506. The ice spirit frozen spring's innate life forms were not normal life forms. The ice flood dragons did not have a physical body, so they could fuse with the ice spirit frozen spring. Not to mention the fact that Chu Tian did not have the strength to fight them. Even if he did, he would not be able to kill them in this kind of environment. The little fox saw that the situation was dire and did not need to be reminded. Its four limbs moved forward and it left Chu Tian's body. It wildly absorbed the surrounding energy while charging at an ice flood dragon. Its mouth was filled with sharp teeth as it bit down on the ice flood dragon's neck. The ice flood dragon's entire body was as clear as crystal, just like a natural work of art. However, there was a glowing energy flowing through its body. This energy was the essence of the ice flood dragon, and the little fox had directly sucked it in with a single bite. The ice flood dragon's body was covered in large amounts of cracks. With a prng sound, the ice flood dragon exploded. The little fox's method of dealing with this kind of life form was very effective. But the ice flood dragon's fragments were wrapped up by the ice spirit frozen spring's energy and then reformed. It was just like what Chu Tian had thought. In this kind of environment, these ice flood dragons could not be killed. Fox, tie down these large snakes. Chu Tian felt that the resistance was getting stronger and stronger. A bone-chilling cold seemed to have penetrated his body and entered his mind, causing his reactions to slow down, and he felt drowsy. This was very bad. The little fox was distracted dealing with the ice flood dragons, and the energy around Chu Tian increased. This made it harder for Chu Tian to move forward, and he couldn't even last 30 seconds. There was only one method left. Cover me. Chu Tian pulled out the Netherworld sword, and the Netherworld ghost flame appeared. He used all his strength to jump forward and held the sword hilt with both hands as he charged straight at the white ice flames. The ice flood dragons seemed to have noticed Chu Tian's plan, and two of them turned around to deal with Chu Tian. The little fox noticed one of the ice flood dragons, but it was too late to stop the other one. Rustle. The energy quickly flew over, and Chu Tian suddenly felt a strong sense of danger cover his body. Almost like a conditional radiation, Chu Tian released the power of his main source spirit, and his eyes turned the color of space. Spatial energy surrounded his body. The energy in the ice spirit frozen spring was very strong. Chu Tian's cultivation couldn't even compare to Vivian's. Now that he was in the ice spirit frozen spring, he didn't even have the ability to determine his location. He could only close his eyes and teleport. This kind of behavior was like closing one's eyes and charging into a sea of fire. It was definitely an extremely dangerous behavior. He couldn't care less now. Chu Tian knew very well in his heart that with his ability, it was basically impossible for him to block an attack from the ice flood dragon. Although the risk of blindly teleporting was great, it was still better than waiting for death, right? The cold current released by the ice flood dragon was already close, and Chu Tian could clearly feel his blood freeze. Even the starlight immortal body could not stop this freezing energy. When Chu Tian was about to be turned into an ice sculpture, the surrounding energy suddenly repelled him. Chu Tian disappeared from his original position. He missed. The ice flood dragon did not have the ability to think, but it was still a bit stunned. When it was about to find its target, The little white fox had already charged over and bit down on the ice flood dragon's neck. Like it was drinking a drink, it instantly sucked out all the essence in the ice flood dragon's body. The ice sculpture trembled a few times before shattering into countless pieces. Chu Tian had successfully teleported away, dodging most of the energy, but he had still received a large amount of damage. Now he could not resist the corrosion of the ice spirit spring. Perhaps he would be frozen in this damn place in just a few seconds. It was still not too late to leave now. Ice spirit flame. Chu Tian's eyes opened wide and he was surprised to find that the white flame was just a few feet away, completely parallel to Qin Bingyu's body. The white ball of flame continued to change shape and separate. Large amounts of starry flames were entering Qin Bingyu's 7 orifices. This is bad. At least half of this flame had entered Qin Bingyu's body. This meant that the possession was already half done. The ice spirit flame could condense an innate will, so it was not inferior to the netherworld ghost flame. Not to mention the fact that it could possess someone else's body, this meant that the ice spirit flame's innate will already had complex thoughts and desires, which far surpassed the netherworld flame. Chu Tian did not think that the netherworld sword could swallow the ice spirit flame. If he rashly attacked, there would be the danger of being swallowed. The current situation was special. The ice spirit flame's possession was half done, so it was the easiest time to deal with it. Although the ice spirit flame's possession was very slow, with Chu Tian's current body condition, if he let go of this chance, he would not have the ability to try it again. Netherworld, I'll be depending on you this time. Chu Tian raised his sword and the tip of the sword stabbed into the ice spirit flame. The moment the two touched, there was a very strong will fluctuation that filled the entire ice palace. It was a wild rage. This was like a high and mighty queen being kissed by a beggar on the side of the road. The ice spirit flame was the will of the Eye of Ice that had evolved for tens of thousands of years, finally becoming a high-level existence that surpassed normal life forms. Now that a low-level human was holding a low-level innate spiritual flame, the sword actually released a strong and wild thought of swallowing it. How could it not be angry? This low-level spiritual flame was not something the ice spirit flame placed in its eyes at all. The ice spirit flame had not only been nurtured for tens of thousands of years, its core was the will of the Eye of Ice. Whether it was energy or divine sense, how could this low-level innate spiritual flame compare to it? Not to mention that the ice spirit frozen spring was its home ground. Wanting to extinguish it wasn't any harder than blowing out a candle. The netherworld flame did not seem to understand. All of its will and all of its power was released through the sword blade. The blue and white netherworld flame exploded and it was like a giant embracing the white sun. This was simply seeking death. Even if the ice spirit flame could only use a small part of its power to resist, this small part was enough to resist because the difference in their levels was too large. Not to mention the netherworld flame did not have any home ground advantage here. The cold ice spread across the sword, sealing it in place. The ice spirit flame cut off the connection between the netherworld ghost flame and the netherworld sword. This was equal to cutting off the netherworld ghost flame's path of retreat. With the two flames fighting, only one could survive. From the current situation, the ice spirit flame had an overwhelming advantage. In just a few rounds, the netherworld flame had been weakened by half. Damn, did I underestimate this fellow? The netherworld flame was slowly pushed back, entering the netherworld sword to recover. In the end, no matter how the netherworld sword tried to enter, it was blocked by the layer of ice on the netherworld sword. The ice spirit flame shot out a beam of energy at the netherworld sword. With a gotcha sound, it was like breaking ice. The treasure sword broke into 4 or 5 pieces and fell into the bottomless cold pond. This sword that had followed Chu Tian for so many years had actually been destroyed here. The sword being destroyed was a small matter, but the worst thing was that the netherworld flame's foundation had been destroyed. The weapon spirit had lost its support and died. Fuck. Father will fight it out with you. The netherworld flame condensed on the surface of his body. This was a secret technique similar to the flame demon transformation, turning him into a flaming demon. Chu Tian had temporarily replaced the netherworld sword as the weapon spirit and flame. Like this, there was still a chance of fighting to the death. The ice spirit flame released a taunting will, taking the initiative to attack. The ice spirit flame charged forward and wrapped around Chu Tian. It tried to connect the netherworld flame's power to Chu Tian and swallow him. This was a very easy matter for it. After all, the difference in strength between the two sides was too large and it didn't have any geographical advantage. But when the ice spirit flame covered Chu Tian's body, that dazzling white flame trembled and unexpectedly dimmed. The ice spirit flames began to panic because it had never encountered this kind of thing before. It was not wrapped around a flame or a living being, but rather a black hole that could swallow everything. The ice spirit flame wanted to escape, but it was shocked to find that it had already been sucked in by the black hole. Chu Tian's hands formed a seal and his body was surrounded by the aura of his main source spirit. His eyes had already turned black, which was not a normal eye color. It was a deep, empty eye that was filled with attraction like a black hole. Chu Tian wildly swallowed the ice spirit flame, weakening its power. The netherworld flame seized this chance to counterattack. The ice spirit flame was ignited. It struggled with all its might, but it was useless. The ice spirit flame was too careless. In this weak state, it actually attacked Chu Tian who it didn't know, so it gave Chu Tian a chance to turn the situation around. Chu Tian wildly swallowed it without caring about the price. From spirit to strength, from will to energy, he didn't let a single thing go. The ice spirit flame's struggle became weaker and weaker. The netherworld flame chased after it, finally completely igniting the ice spirit flame. The flames seeped out of Chu Tian's body and spread in all directions. The netherworld flame's essence was to burn energy. The strong energy of the ice spirit frozen spring turned into a large pool of fuel. The flames quickly spread. Several ice flood dragons struggled to escape, but they were swallowed by the flames. When the little fox saw this, it quickly teleported away a few times. Yoda and the others anxiously waited. Vivian suddenly pointed and shouted, "Look, there's light inside." From the beginning to the end of her voice, in just a short breath's time, that little bit of light had already filled the entire ice cave, causing the surrounding ice crystals that were harder than metal to crack. A terrifying energy was released from the center of the ice palace and the entire ice field began to violently tremble. Several hundred miles were affected as all kinds of avalanches appeared at the same time. In a very short period of time, the frozen lake was covered in cracks, and every crack was spewing out blue and white flames. This spectacular scene was simply like a scene from the end of the world. Yoda and the others were all stunned. The entire ice lake was being destroyed by the flames from the fountain. No one could explain what was happening with this shocking scene. After around 10 minutes, the flames gradually extinguished. The entire ice lake was in a mess, but the depths of the ice were still burning. Vivian anxiously shouted, "Something must have happened, quickly save Big Brother Chu Tian." Chapter 507. Chu Tian vaguely remembered that after the netherworld ghost flame swallowed the ice spirit flame, it immediately ignited the ice vein with the eye of the ice as the center. Large amounts of energy surged out and instantly covered the world, completely submerging Chu Tian. "Damn, father's luck isn't bad, I actually didn't die." Chu Tian woke up to find that his limbs were fine and he was lying in a cave in the heavenly Yin Mountains. He thought it was a small matter, but he never thought that he would be in such a dangerous situation. Now that he carefully thought about it, Chu Tian broke out in a cold sweat from the risk he took. Something's wrong." Chu Tian recovered his consciousness and found that there were many things that were wrong. The first thing he found was that the entire world was different from before. Everything in the world was clearer, the elements collided with each other, the flow of energy and matter in the air. Every small change could not escape Chu Tian's eyes. Chu Tian could even see the shape of every speck of dust that floated past him, and he could even feel the hairs on the ants in the corner. His divine sense was several times stronger than before. That's right. Chu Tian remembered that in the most dangerous moment, he had activated the swallowing power of his main source spirit and began a life and death battle with the ice spring divine sense, finally successfully defeating the mysterious ice spirit flame. The netherworld flame had defeated the strong and refined the ice spirit flame. Not only did it give Chu Tian the essence, Chu Tian had also absorbed the divine sense that had been nurtured in the eye of the ice for over 100,000 years. This was an incomparably large amount of wealth. Chu Tian's divine sense had a large breakthrough, and now he had completely surpassed the mind's lamp realm, reaching the higher, vision domain realm. Although divine sense cultivation and cultivation base weren't completely unrelated, there was a large independent relationship between them. Divine sense was the power to dig out a living being's soul and spiritual source. Spirit energy was the power to absorb the spiritual energy of the world. The former was to dig out one's roots, while the latter was to borrow objects to mend the heavens. Who was stronger and who was weaker could not be compared one-sidedly. However, before one's divine sense reached a sufficient level of strength, the range of its usage was relatively limited. In comparison, strengthening one's origin power and directly raising one's cultivation could increase one's strength and extend one's lifespan, so the effect was more obvious. The difficulty of cultivating divine sense was often very high. In addition to the need for opportunities and fortuitous encounters, it also required one's own understanding and the relevant qualities. It was so strenuous and unrewarding that it led to the specialization. Although it had a high value in the production of divine sense, as well as in assisting in cultivation and combat, it was still not as practical as direct strength. A truly qualified cultivator could not simply pursue power. Chu Tian knew that strength alone could not surpass the limits of the realm. This was also the reason why Chu Tian focused on the development of his divine sense. However, if he wanted to improve his divine sense, he not only needed to have the relevant abilities, but he also needed to have similar fortuitous encounters. Fortuitous encounters could only be encountered but not sought. Just this reward alone made the risk worth it. Chu Tian's impression was that he was heavily injured and he would need to rest for at least half a month if he didn't die. Now there were no traces of injuries on his body, and his spirit energy had increased by a large amount. His cultivation had increased by 2 stages, going from the peak 2nd true spirit layer to the peak 3rd true spirit layer. If it wasn't for the fact that there was a bottleneck between the peak 3rd true spirit layer and the 4th true spirit layer, he would have already reached the 4th true spirit layer with the large amount of energy gathered in his body. What was going on here? Why did it increase so quickly? This was most likely the increase brought by the netherworld flame refining the ice spiritual flame. The biggest regret was that the sword was destroyed in the fight and now it had fallen into the depths of the ice hole. Without the netherworld sword's help, his battle strength would be greatly reduced. Wait a minute. Without the sword, what about the flame? The value of a sword wasn't high. The most precious thing was the netherworld ghost flame. Chu Tian carefully inspected his body, and in the end, Chu Tian was very surprised to find that in his meridians and dantian, the flame and spirit energy were perfectly combined. This flame aura was very familiar. It was the netherworld flame attached to the netherworld sword. The netherworld flame had swallowed half of the ice spiritual flame and its quality had increased. Now it had already evolved several levels. It couldn't be compared to before. An explosion came from Chu Tian's right hand as blue and white flames appeared, nimbly moving through his fingers. Although it had swallowed the ice spiritual flame, the netherworld flame was still dominant. The two did not merge together, rather one swallowed the other. The loser would become nutrients for the winner. There was no fire source spirit or ice source spirit. Why could he directly merge the flame into his spirit energy? This was a very strange and mysterious matter, but he didn't feel any discomfort. On the contrary, his strength would increase by a large amount. Netherworld, how is your current situation? I swallowed the ice spiritual flame and obtained an unprecedented evolution, so I can separate from the netherworld sword and fuse with Master's spirit energy, becoming a part of Master's strength. Good. Very good. Even if Chu Tian didn't use his source spirit, his spirit energy was already very strong. The most important thing was that Netherworld had undergone a large amount of evolution, becoming an artificial intelligence. His relationship with Chu Tian was a bit like a master and servant contract. This was different from the relationship between the little fox and Chu Tian. Chu Tian was the little fox's master. If the little fox died, Chu Tian wouldn't die. Once Chu Tian died, the little fox would have a hard time living. However, the little fox's personality was a bit strong. The contract only restricted the little fox's life, but it didn't restrict the little fox's thoughts. Netherworld was a spiritual life, completely under Chu Tian's control. Therefore, Netherworld's personality was very strong. He didn't have a personality like the little fox, but he was an absolutely loyal and reliable talisman. Netherworld was already a top-level artificial intelligence. If he could create a super source energy matrix to strengthen it, wouldn't Chu Tian have a super smart brain implanted in him? This would definitely have a large benefit and convenience. Chu Tian decided to give it a try when he returned. Big brother Chu Tian, you're finally awake. Vivian felt movement and immediately charged in. You really worried us to death. How long was I unconscious for? What happened in between? Big brother, you still don't know? Vivian's face was filled with worship as she spoke in an exaggerated tone. You burned the entire ice field's spirit vein and large amounts of spiritual energy was released from the fire, giving us quite a bit of benefits. Even my cultivation base has increased by quite a bit and Een spirit is almost in the 5th true spirit layer. The death ice field's spirit vein has been burning all this time, letting the spiritual energy released surpass the 6 great spiritual mountains. The ice field will soon become a new paradise not inferior to the 6 great spiritual mountains. This completely surpassed Chu Tian's expectations. Chu Tian didn't know how this happened, but it wasn't important. He quickly asked, "How is Big Sister Bing?" Big Sister Bing has already woken up, but she can't move right now. Come, let's go take a look. Chen Bingyu was sitting in the cave in seclusion. Her silver-white hair flowed down like a waterfall, dancing without any wind. Her mature body was actually covered in white flames, but what was strange was that these flames did not harm her at all. This was a blessing in disguise for Chen Bingyu, not any less than Chu Tian. The ice spirit flame's possession was interrupted halfway. Half of the ice spirit flame was refined by Chu Tian and the other half entered Chen Bingyu's body. The ice eyes will even took the initiative to change it, allowing the powerful energy to adapt to Chen Bingyu's body. Following that, the ice spirit flame was taken care of by Chu Tian and this energy was taken by Chen Bingyu for free. The ice spirit fire's target of possession was not just anyone. This had to be established on the premise that they had the relevant bloodline. Chu Tian and Chen Bingyu each took half of the ice spirit flame. Chu Tian refined it from the netherworld flame and the netherworld flame refined the ice spirit flame, absorbing its essence to evolve. Chen Bingyu directly turned the ice spirit flame into her own energy. The two sounded similar, but there was an essential difference. In short, Chen Bingyu's increase this time was very large. Her cultivation was now in the 5th or 6th true spirit layer, so there was still room for her to increase. Moreover, Chen Bingyu had merged with the ice and fire, so her battle strength would be even stronger than before. Sorry. Chen Bingyu saw that Chu Tian had come to visit and that nothing had happened to this fellow, so Chen Bingyu was a bit relieved. The consciousness in the ice spring was too strong. I wasn't prepared and was bewitched for a moment, so I did this kind of dangerous thing. I almost dragged you down with me. Don't say that, I'm very good right now. Chu Tian didn't suffer any losses and gave a few laughs in an uncaring manner. You just need to properly rest here. We'll stabilize the situation and you can smoothly become the great Zhou Queen. Chen Bingyu shook her head with a bitter smile. What queen? She wasn't interested. If Chu Tian wanted to control the great Zhou country, he needed a direct power. Chen Bingyu had already obtained the strongest inheritance of the great Zhou royal family's ruins, so her future was limitless. As long as she spread this news, it was unknown how many people would come to join her. The great Zhou queen's position, Chen Bingyu couldn't run away. Chu Tian was prepared to build the imperial city near the ice field. With the large amount of spiritual energy in the ice field, it wouldn't be a small power. The great Zhou royal family had the support of miracle commerce, so their influence would be even larger than the 6 spiritual mountains. This way, they would be able to firmly grasp the great Zhou country. Boss, I'm back. Nangong Yun brought people back at this time. Good news, Yuan Jinan, Jin Kuei, and the others are convinced. They are now willing to cooperate with miracle commerce as long as it doesn't destroy their current benefits. Convinced? This was also within his expectations. Chu Tian nodded and said, now that the general trend cannot be stopped, we will unite the large sects and the small and medium-sized powers of the great Zhou country. In the name of protecting the country, we will launch a crusade against the Heavenly Sword Mountain. This time we must pull out this thorn and also kill the chicken to warn the monkeys, shocking all the great Zhou sects. All right. Nangong Yun was filled with confidence. The Heavenly Sword Mountain's leaders are all dead. It will be as easy as turning our hands to eliminate them. Chapter 508. In just a short half a month, the great Zhou country had a series of dramatic reversals. First, the Heavenly Sword sect gathered the other 4 sects to attack the Black Moon sect, but in just a few days, they were mysteriously defeated. The Heavenly Sword sect's sect Master Ling Wanjian and Vice sect Master Ling Ying were both killed. The alliance formed by the 5 spiritual mountains collapsed and 300,000 people were captured by the Black Moon sect. When everyone was stunned, the Divine Machine Hall, Medicine King Valley, Void Spirit Cave, and Black Tortoise sect strangely announced that the Heavenly Sword sect was colluding with the Eagle Burial Kingdom to cause a civil war in the Great Zhou country, so they were joining forces with the Black Moon sect to attack the Heavenly Sword sect. This change was just too strange. Even if one's thoughts jumped, wouldn't they not be able to withstand this dramatic change? A few days ago, the sects that were locked in a fierce battle had actually formed an army in less than a week's time. Together, they used the banners of eradicating evil, protecting the great Zhou dynasty, and re-establishing the royal family, and so on. They incited a large number of forces, big and small, and threw the entire great Zhou dynasty into chaos. From there, they started a grand battle to encircle and annihilate Heavenly Sword Mountain. Was it easy to break the head of the 6 spiritual mountains, the Heavenly Sword Mountain? The Heavenly Sword sect was like a group of dragons without a leader. When the Black Moon sect led the 5 spiritual mountains to gather at the foot of the Heavenly Sword Mountain, the entire Heavenly Sword Mountain fell into chaos. The battle hadn't even begun and they were already in chaos. Yin Spirit came in front of Chu Tian. We can attack now. No rush, no rush. Chu Tian revealed a faint smile as he looked over the people of the 4 sections. Although he believed in the young Miss and Dolores's persuasion skills, the attitude of the sect masters had changed so quickly. This was something Chu Tian never expected. We have a 100% chance of victory in this battle. We don't need to pursue a quick victory, we need to pursue a complete victory. The City Lord is right. The City Lord is right. The sect masters of the large sects all nodded. The so-called a wise man submits to circumstances. After personally visiting Miracle City, they couldn't be stubborn even if they wanted to. Miracle City's technology, Miracle City's potential, and Miracle City's experts, especially the Elven and Treant experts, they were all filled with fear. Perhaps any one of them could sweep through the great Zhou sect masters. With Miracle City's strong background and technology, why would they covet the great Zhou country? Just like Chu Tian said, the great Zhou country was just a small part of Miracle City's territory. Miracle City did not need to completely control the great Zhou country. These great Zhou sects took advantage of Miracle City's early stages to join in. They would receive an unimaginably high reward in the future. Meng Yingying ran in front of Chu Tian to report the results of the negotiations. We have communicated with Heavenly Sword Mountain. A few stubborn old fools are stubbornly guarding the entrance and refusing to surrender. They even said that if we dared to take a step closer, they would activate the Myriad Sword Mountain formation and tear us into pieces. So arrogant? He had to be taught a lesson. Chu Tian said to Nangong Yun, who was standing beside him, "How are the weapons deployed?" Nangong Yun confidently replied, "A Heaven's Punishment airship is in place and there are 20 source energy cannons deployed. As long as boss gives the order, we will immediately attack." Since they refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit, Then we'll let them have a taste of our might. Understood. This attack was not only led by the 5 great sects, there was also the support of Miracle Commerce's weapons. So what if the Heavenly Sword Mountain was made of iron? The airships had a wave of bombardment and the 20-source energy cannons had been firing for several hours, accompanied by powerful destructive missiles. Who would be able to withstand such an attack? The Heavenly Sword Mountain's protective array was famous for its powerful attacks. The 5 great sects hadn't even launched an attack and the Heavenly Sword Mountain's array had already been reduced by half. This did not just reduce the Heavenly Sword Mountain's defenses, it also dealt a large blow to their morale. The time has come. Full force attack. Miracle Commerce couldn't keep up their firepower. When the bombardment was about done, the 5 great sects finally launched their first wave of attacks. The Heavenly Sword Mountain's defenses were already full of holes, not to mention that there were many experts from the forest among the attacking troops. After several attacks, the Heavenly Sword Mountain's protective array was finally destroyed. The mountain gate has been broken. The Heavenly Sword Mountain has run out of luck. Immediately put down your weapons and surrender. We won't kill those who surrender. The Heavenly Sword Sect's elder and sect master have colluded with the Eagle Burial Kingdom, so they have this kind of ending. The Heavenly Sword Sect's disciples do not need to be buried with them. The people of the 5 great sects began to shout out in unison. No one wanted to cause a large slaughter and the Heavenly Sword Sect's normal disciples would not be involved in high-level matters. Not to mention the fact that the Heavenly Sword Sect's cultivators had high battle strength, they would be the backbone of the Eagle Burial Kingdom in the future. If they were consumed in a civil war, it would be too much of a pity. Don't listen to them. A senior sect elder shouted from a high place, "The Heavenly Sword Mountain has existed for tens of thousands of years and countless heroes have died. How could it be destroyed at this moment? If the mountain exists, the people will exist. If the mountain dies, the people will die. The time to protect the Heavenly Sword Sect has come. Kill these villains that spread lies. You want to die and you want to drag everyone down with you? We'll talk after we kill you." Nangong Yun's hands turned into giant flame wings that soared into the sky, instantly creating a thick cloud of flames as she charged at the other side. The Heavenly Sword Sect elder was clearly not a normal person, sending out several dozen streams of sword chi that fell onto Nangong Yun like a waterfall. Although it scattered the flames on Nangong Yun's body, it couldn't harm Nangong Yun's starlight immortal body at all. Just a trivial triple awakened soul dares to be this arrogant? Go die. Nangong Yun did not make any fancy movements, just punching the other side along with his sword in the air, using a violent and clean method to shatter them into pieces. Who else is there? Nangong Yun killed one of the top elders of the Heavenly Sword Sect in a single move. Her figure was like an angry and proud fire phoenix that stood in the air. This kind of aura that looked down on all living beings and this wild and unstoppable strength made people not dare look at her for a while. But at this time, several cloaked figures came out of the crowd. The auras they released were not weaker than the senior elders, and the one leading them even had a cultivation in the 6th true spirit layer. Nangong Yun lost in the end no matter how fierce she was, therefore she was forced back by the other side in a single move. Of course, with the Starlight Immortal Body and the Nirvana scripture, Nangong Yun's defense and recovery were impeccable, so she was not that easy to defeat. Yoda said from below when he saw this, "These should be people from the Eagle Burial Kingdom." Letting this old man reveal their true faces, the Heavenly Sword Sect disciples' morale will fall and they will collapse on their own. Why bother Prophet Yoda to make a move for such a small character? Chu Tian sat in the middle of the crowd, watching the battle like he was watching a play. "I've comprehended a new move, let me give it a try." Yoda was a bit stunned. What was the new move? The other side had several people in the 5th true spirit layer. Even if Chu Tian's cultivation had increased, could he surpass that high of a difference in cultivation? Not to mention that this was not a one-on-one battle. Nangong Yun knew that she couldn't beat the other side, but with her fierce personality, even if she knew she couldn't beat them, she still wouldn't retreat. When Nangong Yun was prepared to launch an even stronger attack, something Nangong Yun never imagined happened. A wondrous force appeared. It seemed like it could ignore the bindings of space and time as it suddenly descended onto Nangong Yun. Nangong Yun's body trembled as blue and white flames surrounded her body. An incomparably strong power suddenly appeared on her body, and Nangong Yun felt her strength increase, becoming at least 5 times stronger than before. This isn't this boss power? Why did it appear on my body? Chu Tian's voice sounded in her mind. I've sent netherworld energy into your body, so your strength won't lose to any of them. Let's have a good fight. Thank you, boss. Nangong Yun couldn't understand what was happening, but what did it matter? She never understood what boss did. Nangong Yun could feel the power enveloping her body, and she immediately let out a roar. Heaven-burning fist. The netherworld flame and phoenix flame combined, and a storm was released, instantly burning 2 Eagle Burial Kingdom experts. It's actually this strong. Nangong Yun was shocked herself. Nangong Yun was stunned for a moment. The Eagle Burial Kingdom expert's leader used a secret technique and slashed at Nangong Yun with his scimitar. Nangong Yun was sent flying several meters, but she wasn't injured at all. Why are you so stupid? Chu Tian's voice sounded in Nangong Yun's mind again. I'll send you 2 more moves, quickly take care of them. Nangong Yun felt power descend onto her body once again. The Eagle Burial Kingdom expert wanted to chase after her, and when he was about to approach this woman, large amounts of netherworld flame condensed on his body, instantly forming the image of a demon. Flame demon transformation. Wasn't this Chu Tian's unique secret technique? While everyone was in a daze, a sword chi appeared in Nangong Yun's right hand. She took a step forward and her body suddenly disappeared. Several dozen dazzling sword glows appeared. It was like an endless wave that tore through the void. Several cloaked people were instantly cut into pieces. The leading expert barely managed to block a few of them, but the netherworld flame sword art was too strong, not to mention Nangong Yun's explosive strength. His protective spirit energy was broken. Nangong Yun's sword chi stabbed into the other side's chest. How is this possible? The Eagle Burial Kingdom expert revealed a look of disbelief. He couldn't understand even at the moment of his death. Nangong Yun wasn't even at the heaven spirit realm. How could she release this kind of terrifying strength? The people around Chu Tian were all stunned. What was wrong with Nangong Yun today? Was she possessed by Chu Tian? Chu Tian sat in his chair without moving, but his golden eyes slowly returned to their original color. He closed his eyes and gently panted, with sweat already covering his temples. It would be strange if you could understand. This vision domain, divine sense, was very rare, not to mention using his main source spirit to strengthen it. Chapter 509. The divine sense realm was split into many different levels. Hyperfocus was a high degree of control. The heart's eye had the ability to observe with divine sense. The heart's lamp already had the ability to interfere, and when one reached the vision domain realm, they would have the symbolic ability, body possession. Body possession was not completely controlling one's mind. It could also imbue one's divine sense with certain characteristics and abilities onto the target. Chu Tian had just used the vision domain realm's ability, using his divine sense to imbue the netherworld's power onto Nangong Yun. Because of this, Nangong Yun's strength increased, and she also had a portion of Chu Tian's cultivation technique and abilities. This was the power of the vision domain realm. In the warring kingdoms of the continent, it was easy to find spirit transformation cultivators, but it was hard to find a vision domain divine sense person. Even a warring kingdom might not have a single one. Therefore, even on the continent, it was a rare existence to have a divine sense cultivator in this realm. Reaching the vision domain realm with a cultivation in the peak 3rd true spirit layer, this could be considered a shocking feat. Heavenly Sword Sect's people, open your eyes and look. This is the consecrator your sect master found. When Nangong Yun revealed the true identity of the mysterious consecrated elder, the disciples of the Heavenly Sword Sect were instantly dumbfounded. Their morale naturally plummeted. In the end, under the combined attack of the 5 great sects, the Heavenly Sword Sect completely gave up resisting. The Heavenly Sword Sect's people all threw down their swords and surrendered. The mountain gate had been completely captured and occupied. Nangong Yun followed Chu Tian's instructions and brought all the surrendered elders of the Heavenly Sword sect in front of Chu Tian. "Boss, I've brought them to you. Do you have any orders?" "All right, it's been hard on you." Chu Tian looked over these people and did not waste words. "I want something from the Heavenly Sword sect. As long as you honestly give it to me, I promise I won't make it hard for you and will even guarantee that you won't have to worry about your cultivation in the future." The Heavenly Sword sect was already finished. What couldn't this fellow obtain if he wanted it? A Heavenly Sword sect elder quickly asked, "What does the city lord want?" The Heavenly Sword sect has a long history of sword cultivation. There are several dozen first-rate sword arts on the continent. We are willing to hand over all the cultivation techniques of the Heavenly Sword sect, as long as the city lord is willing to let us go. Chu Tian's voice changed. "I haven't finished speaking yet. Actually, these sword arts are nothing. I'm only interested in your Heavenly Sword sect's small phaseless sword." "What? Small phaseless sword? This? The Heavenly Rapier sect elders looked at each other in dismay. Nangong Yun raised her eyebrows. "It is your honor that my boss is interested in you. Since the boss has spoken, why don't you take out that sword?" An elder said with a bitter smile, It's not that we don't want to take it out, but the small phaseless sword is an ultimate sword art created by the Heavenly Sword sect's founder in the Sword Tomb for 30 years. It is the Heavenly Sword sect's most important cultivation technique, and only the sect master has the qualifications to use it. We don't even know where the sword art is hidden." "Bullshit," Nangong Yun angrily said. "If you dare lie to us, I will make you die miserably." "Spare us." The elders all begged for mercy. "We really don't know." Chu Tian knit his brows. It was rare to find an interesting cultivation technique. Were they going to miss it like this? "Boss, you don't need to worry," Nangong Yun said to Chu Tian. "This cultivation technique must be in the Heavenly Sword sect. I'll bring several thousand people to dig through the Heavenly Sword Mountain. I don't believe we can't find it." "There's no need to be so troublesome," Chu Tian said to the elders. "Where is the sword tomb created by your sect's founder? Bring me to see it." This, Nangong Yun picked him up. "I told you to hand over the cultivation technique, and you're hesitating. Now I want you to take us to some broken tomb, and you're being so hesitant. I think you fellows are just not cooperating. You're simply asking for a beating. How about I help you loosen your bones?" "No, it's a misunderstanding. The sword tomb isn't a secret place, but the sword tomb has already been searched. The small phaseless sword cultivation technique can't be hidden in that kind of place." "Is that so?" Nangong Yun looked at Chu Tian. "Then what do we do?" Chu Tian calmly stood up. "Since the Heavenly Sword sect's founder could comprehend the small phaseless sword in the sword tomb, why can't I? Bring me to the sword tomb to have a look." This brat really didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. In the era of the Heavenly Sword sect's founder, the great Zhou country hadn't appeared yet. This founder was called the Phaseless Sword Saint. Actually, before he created the small phaseless sword, he was already a super expert that shook the continent. Even so, the Phaseless Sword Saint used an entire 30 years. How old was this young man? Did he have 30-50 years of meditation? Nangong Yun and the others didn't care. How could these trivial mountain kings compare to Chu Tian? Which miracle Chu Tian had created since his debut was inferior to a trivial sword art. "Stop talking, quickly lead the way." The Heavenly Sword sect's elder had no choice but to open the sword tomb door. The Heavenly Sword Mountain sword tomb was a remnant of the ancient era and was actually hidden in the belly of the Heavenly Sword Mountain. Its size was not inferior to an underground palace, and there were millions of swords inside, with each one being a rare treasure. This also showed how strong the ancient sword cultivator's inheritance was. At the very least, it wouldn't lose to the ancient sect that created the 10,000 corpse ancient tomb in the Een Corpse Valley. Wow, there really are a lot of swords. Nangong Yun and Meng Yinging followed Chu Tian into the sword tomb. The sword tomb was very large, but the structure was not complicated. There were millions of swords inserted into the ground, forming an 8 trigrams array. It seemed like a powerful and ancient sword array, but because of the passage of time, most of the swords in the sword tomb had decayed, so it didn't have the aura of the past. Chu Tian walked across the bridge of the sword tomb. There were many long bridges like this in the sword tomb, with all kinds of swords inserted into the left and right. There was a dense forest of swords at the bottom of the bridge. The large ones were over 10 meters long and the small ones were only 1 or 2 feet long. There were all kinds of swords. It was simply an exhibition of swords. This is the Heavenly Sword Sect's sword tomb. A Heavenly Sword Sect disciple said in a trembling voice, "Almost all of our Heavenly Sword Sect's cultivation techniques and treasures were excavated from the sword tomb. After so many years, the sword tomb has already been excavated, so it's hard to find anything valuable here." Nangong Yun looked at Chu Tian and said, "Boss, you wouldn't be thinking of closing up here, right?" "Closing up? That would be strange. Chu Tian wouldn't do this kind of thing." Chu Tian had personally experienced the might of the small phaseless sword. He knew that this kind of sword art wasn't something the Heavenly Sword Sect could create. Even if the founder was strong, he was still limited by the era and knowledge. Not to mention 30 years, even if he was given 100 years, he still wouldn't be able to create this kind of cultivation technique. "You guys step aside a bit." Chu Tian closed his eyes and released his divine sense, instantly covering the entire sword tomb. Each sword was trembling and some of them let out a clear cry. All of these swords were soul-contracting weapons that could only be found by luck. Because they felt Chu Tian's strength, they took the initiative to acknowledge Chu Tian. As long as Chu Tian needed it, he could take away any one of these swords. However, Chu Tian wasn't looking for a weapon, so he wasn't interested in these swords at all. I got it." Chu Tian jumped into the air and jumped down from the sword bridge. His feet stepped on the densely packed sword hilts until he finally landed in the center area, right in front of a giant broken sword that was hung in chains. The others all chased after him, looking at Chu Tian with a look of surprise. Meng Yingying asked, "Is there something strange about this broken sword?" This was an incomparably huge broken sword, with countless iron chains shuttling through it. It stood upright in the center, and the body of the sword was already extremely rusted. This kind of broken sword was everywhere in the sword tomb, so this one shouldn't be too different. "This is it." Chu Tian walked in front of the giant broken sword and placed his hand on it. When he poured his divine sense into it, the giant broken sword trembled a few times, but there was no reaction. "That's not right." Meng Yingying had a strange expression as she said, "It's just a broken sword, you're most likely mistaken?" Chu Tian wouldn't make a mistake. There had to be something else in this broken sword, but how was he supposed to activate it? Nangong Yun said, "Even if this sword really is different, it has been placed in the sword tomb for so many years. I'm afraid that countless Heavenly Sword Sect disciples, elders, and even the sect master have observed it, but no one has been able to solve its secret. Just based on this point, it is not easy to solve." She was right. If it was easy to solve its secret, would it have been kept until today? Chu Tian pondered it for a bit and then suddenly released his source spirit. The jet black demon god sword flew into the air and a destructive sword chi instantly covered the giant broken sword. The broken sword trembled even more violently. Suddenly, a few pieces of rust fell off. Meng Yingying's eyes lit up as she said, "There's a reaction." The rust on the broken sword kept falling off and the thing hidden inside kept coming out. It was like a snow-white jade, as if it was made of congealed fat. The surface was covered in dense and profound characters. It really was like this. Actually, it wasn't hard to solve this secret, as long as one had a strong enough sword source spirit. There weren't many people in the history of the Heavenly Sword Sect that had this kind of source spirit. Perhaps the founding ancestor, the Phaseless Sword Saint, was one of them. Meng Yingying came over to look. She had learned quite a few characters over the past year, but when she saw the characters in front of her, she felt dizzy. She couldn't recognize a single character. What kind of characters are these? I've never seen them before. This is a high-level character of the ancient heaven race. Even I can only understand a small part of it. Chu Tian carefully looked at it and said, "This should be a sword art cultivation technique. It's most likely the phaseless sword." It seems like the Heavenly Sword sect's founding ancestor creating the small phaseless sword is pure nonsense. Nangong Yun snorted in disdain. He clearly plagiarized it, but he said it was his own creation, truly shameless. You can't say it like this. He spent 30 years deciphering these characters. This sword scripture's essence is a space-attributed sword scripture, but sword cultivators with space attributes are rare. Therefore, he simplified the sword scripture and used the original version as the foundation to create the so-called small phaseless sword. Actually, phaseless sword is much more powerful than small phaseless sword. Wasn't the cultivation technique Chu Tian found the original? The characters are disappearing. Quickly record it down and let the young miss decipher it. Meng Yinying quickly took out her cell phone to take a few pictures. She couldn't find the so-called small phaseless sword, but she found the complete version of the phaseless sword. Once this sword art was completed, a person's battle strength would reach an unimaginable level. Other than the phaseless sword's jade disc, Chu Tian also took out the Heavenly Sword sect's 10 high-level techniques, making a copy of them all. After all, the Heavenly Sword sect's sword arts were passed down from ancient times and had been refined by generations of geniuses, so there were still many good things to learn. Miracle commerce not only needed resources, these cultivation techniques and secret techniques were also very precious treasures. Chapter 510. The Great Zhou country was long and narrow, looking like a snake. From north to south, it was several tens of thousands of miles, and in the middle section, there was a piece of land that protruded to the west. One of the most prosperous cities in the Great Zhou country, Cloud City, was located in this area. Cloud City had over 8 million people and its location was very special, being located in a four-corner area. Cloud City was connected to the Warhound Plains to the east, the Great Summer Country to the south, and the northern countries to the north, so it was a place where merchants and adventurers gathered. This was the area that the Void Spirit Cave, the Medicine King Valley, and the Black Moon sect managed together, but it had now been ceded to become the Great Zhou royal family's eastern capital. The Great Zhou country's 5 spiritual mountains supported the Great Zhou princess Qin Bingyu's kingship, becoming the new ruler of the Great Zhou country. She was mainly in charge of the secular world's economy as well as managing the various factions. The imperial city was still under construction and it would take half a year to complete. Once the imperial city was completed, the Thousand East city would be in charge of the imperial city. The queen is ascending the throne. The queen is ascending the throne. Cloud City was already filled with people. Everyone ran out and gathered outside the palace. The sect masters and elders of the 5 great spirit mountains were all present. Thousands of cultivators dressed in neat uniforms stood on both sides of the main road, bowing respectfully to the sect masters. There was already a sea of people all around because no one from the Great Zhou country wanted to miss this historical moment. The Great Zhou royal family had just been rebuilt, so there were no soldiers, no servants, and no maids. All the ceremonies were simple, but this did not affect the level of this coronation ceremony. From the sect masters to the elders, this scene was rarely seen in the Great Zhou country. Not to mention that they were all expressing their approval and support for the royal family. The Great Zhou royal family had just been rebuilt, but their status had already surpassed 18 years ago. Chen Bingyu was wearing a crown and a royal robe. She was currently being supported by Nangong Yun and Meng Yinying as she ascended the throne under the sound of bells and drums. The Black Moon sect offers 110,000-year-old black crystals, celebrating the Great Zhou King's ascension. The Void Spirit Cave offers 1,000 thunder protection talismans, celebrating the Great Zhou King's ascension. The Medicine King Valley offers 1,000 heaven spirit raising pills, celebrating the Great Zhou King's ascension. The Black Tortoise sect offers 10,000 Black Tortoise soldiers, celebrating the Great Zhou King's ascension. The Divine Machine Hall has gifted 100 Vajra machine guards to guard the palace, to celebrate the ascension of the King of Great Zhou. Now that the 5 large sects had taken the lead to offer gifts, the small and medium-sized powers did not dare be negligent. They all offered their most precious treasures to the newly established Great Zhou royal family. Just from the gifts from these large and small Great Zhou powers, the Great Zhou royal family could build a treasure house. He was too surprised. The 5 great sects took the initiative to pay tribute to the newly established royal court. This was clearly taking the initiative to curry favor. The Great Zhou country's 6 spiritual mountains had always been strong. When had something like this ever happened? Not long after everyone was shocked, 2 very special teams of emissaries suddenly appeared in the crowd. Northern militant King Luz has sent 10,000 good beasts to congratulate the new king of Great Zhou on ascending the throne. Great Summer King Dongfang has sent 10,000 source energy weapons to congratulate the new Great Zhou king. The expressions of the Great Zhou people became quite strange. Northern militant king? The king of Grand Xia? When did all of this appear? Why didn't people know about the appearance of such a country and its name? Chen Bingyu sat on the throne. She had long silver hair, a cold and elegant face, and a mature temperament, making her look like a high and mighty queen. She used a calm and dignified gaze to look over these people and nodded to Meng Yingying beside her. Meng Yingying cleared her throat and walked out. Her hands opened a royal proclamation and she began to read, Great Zhou Royal Proclamation. Although the Great Zhou Royal Court has been rebuilt, there are evil inside and strong enemies outside, with many tigers and wolves surrounding us. For the stability of the Great Zhou country, this king has decided to exchange royal proclamations with the northern militant and Great Summer country to establish relations, to establish prosperity and create a peaceful era. The 5 spiritual mountain sect masters cupped their hands. My king is wise. The 5 sect masters were like this, so how could the others have any objections? The 5 spiritual mountain disciples all bowed down. The small and medium-sized sects and normal citizens all knelt down on the ground. My king is wise. My king is wise. My king is wise. The northern militant King Luz and the Great Summer King Dongfang both walked onto the high platform. They began to exchange royal proclamations and sign a peaceful alliance contract. This meant that from now on, the Great Zhou, Great Summer, and Northern Militant Kingdoms would become one. Although they were independent, the barriers between them had been broken, forming a circle of prosperity. This kind of large matter was done just like that. The citizens of the 3 countries naturally found this unbelievable. But the people who knew the inside story knew that the Great Zhou King's ascension was just a play. Miracle Commerce was the director and scriptwriter of this play, so they had already made large amounts of preparations. The Great Zhou King was a high-level member of Miracle Commerce, the Northern Militant King was a member of Miracle Commerce, and the Great Summer King had a deep relationship with Miracle Commerce. Basically, as long as Miracle Commerce didn't fall, this triangle relationship wouldn't fall. Looking at the current situation, the Great Zhou country was far stronger than the Great Summer country and the Northern Militant country, but there wouldn't be any losers in this alliance. The 3 countries' combined strength would double. Not only could they block the Northern Eagle Burial country's invasion, they could also use Miracle Commerce's technology to soar. The future would only become better and it wouldn't be worse than now. The Great Zhou country's ascension ceremony ended after a day. Luz had just established his regime in the Northern Militant and had a bunch of things to deal with. Thus, he had to rush back immediately. Dongfang couldn't stay in the Great Zhou Kingdom for too long. After discussing the details of the collaboration with Chen Bingyu, he returned to the Great Xia Kingdom. We have to return to Miracle City. Big Sister Bing, you have to take care of yourself. In the Cloud City Palace, Meng Yingying and Nangong Yun said their goodbyes to Chen Bingyu. The 2 of them revealed expressions of regret. Chen Bingyu had become the Great Zhou country's empress and there were many things she had to take care of in the Great Zhou country, so she couldn't return to Miracle City to live with everyone for a while. Chen Bingyu's cold face revealed a trace of disappointment. Go back and tell Chu Tian that I will manage the 3 kingdoms, so he can be assured. That idiot Chu Tian is also too much. Meng Yingying complained. He went back and found elder sister to translate the cultivation technique, not meeting anyone before going into closed-door cultivation. He didn't even come to take a look at such a big matter in the Great Zhou country. Nangong Yun was also a bit indignant. That's right, Big Sister Bing is staying in the Great Zhou country alone and the boss doesn't come to visit. This is a bit unfair. Chen Bingyu revealed a smile like the spring sun melting snow. Don't exaggerate it like this, it isn't hard to see him now. There's no need to worry about me, go back early. Big Sister Bing can be assured. I'll go back and give Elder Sister an application to have the company build a second transport tower in the Great Zhou country. It'll be built in the Imperial City's royal palace, so we can see each other every day. Chen Bingyu's heart slightly moved. From the citizens' identity information, daily service management, to the city's financial and bank financial management, as well as the shopping center, communication, and the spiritual network, it was all under Meng Qingwu's arrangements. There was a complete smart brain control system. Other than that, the cooperation between the Elven King and Miracle Commerce had deepened, with transport towers being built in various places. These transport towers and space warehouses were all managed by smart brains. Meng Qingwu had a strict identity verification and security system, and now with the intelligent management of the smart brain, everything was being monitored by Miracle Commerce and all risks were being reduced to a minimum. An intelligent city was being born in the depths of the forest. An inconceivable era was quickly awakening. Meng Qingwu walked in front of the window. When she saw the flourishing city, it was hard for her to suppress the pride in her heart. She had used all her intelligence and schemes on the most optimal construction. As for what the future would look like, it was already not something Meng Qingwu could imagine. In short, it had to be heaven. Chapter 511. Chu Tian had been in closed-door cultivation for 10 days to consolidate his realm and refine his spirit energy. Of course, the most important thing was to comprehend the new phaseless sword art. This was a strange technique left behind by the mysterious Tian clan in ancient times. The reason why this sword art was named phaseless was mainly because the phaseless sword art was a strange sword art with spatial attribute. Therefore, it was traceless and formless, making people unable to grasp it and guard against it. The difficulty of cultivating the phaseless sword art was too high. Not only did it require the highest level sword cultivation talent and source spirit, it also required spatial energy. How could it be easy to meet these harsh requirements? The Great Zhou country's Heavenly Sword Sect's small phaseless sword was a new simplified sword art created by the Heavenly Sword Sect's founder to solve this problem. The small phaseless sword stripped away the unpredictable spatial ability, but it still had the characteristic of being invisible and its killing power was extremely astonishing. However, in terms of power and other aspects, there was still a huge gap between the small phaseless sword and the real phaseless sword art. Chu Tian was cultivating the true phaseless sword. At this moment, Chu Tian was in the Miracle Gardens, sitting in a beautiful little valley in a white robe. His body was surrounded by beautiful red and purple flowers, and there were too many rare herbs to count. There were small flower fairies around him, providing spiritual essence for Chu Tian's cultivation. Phaseless sword finger. Chu Tian opened his eyes and casually flicked his finger. The small mountain several thousand meters away, without any warning, the peak of the mountain suddenly tilted. The mountain rock that weighed several tens of thousands of pounds fell into the lake, creating a large wave. The cut on the small mountain was as smooth as a mirror. After 2-3 seconds, countless blue and white flames appeared, burning the remaining mountain rock at a terrifying speed. Wow, so powerful! The flower fairies all began to clap. Lulu landed on Chu Tian's shoulder and said, "Such a complex and profound cultivation technique, but you only used 10 days to grasp it? You're truly amazing." Chu Tian was very satisfied with the power of the phaseless sword art. The non-phase sword art could cut through space, and at the same time, it could fuse the sword chi into an attack. This attack could basically cut through any solid matter, and it could also completely ignore the distance of the attack. If combined with Chu Tian's powerful divine sense, no matter where the opponent was, even if the two were separated by thousands of meters, he could take the opponent's head with a flick of his finger. Non-phase sword art was a nearly perfect sword art. If one had to find a flaw, it would be that the consumption was too big. After these days of closed-door cultivation, Chu Tian's cultivation had smoothly broken through to the rank 4 true spirit realm. He had now completed the transformation from the Earth Spirit Cultivator to the Heaven Spirit Cultivator. Chu Tian's total amount of spirit energy was also several times higher than cultivators of the same level, but even so, it was only enough to activate the phaseless sword art. In the future, Chu Tian would not completely focus on practicing non-phase sword. Right now, Miracle Commerce has obtained various top sword cultivation books and secret techniques from the Heavenly Sword Sect, and many other secret techniques from the other 5 spiritual mountains have all been sent to Miracle Commerce. There were 2 organizations directly under Chu Tian. One was the core organization of Miracle Commerce, the Yun Sect. The Yun Sect was a large research organization with several tens of thousands of people. All of Miracle Commerce's new technology and products came from this organization. The other core organization was the Chu Sect. The Yun Sect was a group of scholars and the Chu Sect was a group of martial artists. The Chu Sect had already absorbed large amounts of retainers. From the chiefs of the large tribes in the forest to the elders and sect masters of the great Zhou country's large sects, they had all become retainers of the Chu Sect. Qilin Hall was an important organization of the Chu Sect. The Chu Sect mainly explored cultivation techniques, research cultivation techniques, and research secret techniques. One was civil and one was martial. Because of the large amounts of knowledge and technology that Chu Tian brought, the Yun Sect was Miracle Commerce's most dazzling department. The Chu Sect was inferior in comparison, but as Miracle Commerce continued to develop, Chu Tian would gather more books and secret techniques from the continent, as well as more advanced cultivation experiences and martial arts. Chu Tian believed that in the future, the Chu Sect would be an existence that could change history. Chu Tian began to slowly adjust his spirit energy as he stood up. I've cultivated for over 10 days, it's time to come out. Thank you for helping me. No need to be polite, come play when you have time. Chu Tian passed by the center of the Miracle Gardens. There was a 30-meter-tall tree that stood in the center of the Miracle Gardens. Each leaf was filled with vitality and the entire garden was covered in a dense mist. The ancient tree of life is growing too fast, it's still a few days away from germinating. Of course, the ancient tree of life is a divine object. Of course it can't compare to a mortal object. The ancient tree of life stood in the center of Miracle City, so the area affected would become larger and larger. It would gather the forest of chaos earth veins, changing Miracle City's foundation. After it grew to a certain level as a city lord, the ancient tree of life's power would awaken and it would become Miracle City's guardian deity. With the flower fairies and the tree ants protecting it, it was not an easy matter for other powers to steal or destroy it. He didn't know what the current situation in Miracle City was like. Chu Tian decided to take a look incognito. In order to avoid being recognized by the citizens, he specially put on a large cloak. After the Battle of Miracle City ended, the city had returned to its original state. All traces of the battle had disappeared and the city was even more lively than before. In front of the shopping center, there were several elven girls holding loudspeakers and billboards as they shouted, "Good news, good news!" The cell phone that everyone has been waiting for has finally appeared in the Miracle Shopping Center. Because the quantity is limited, it can only be purchased online right now. Those with citizen cards can enjoy a 20% discount. The cell phone had already been mass-produced and was now on the market. This was a product made from many products of Miracle Commerce. Although it was not as good as the original product, it was more convenient and concentrated, therefore it was a product with a large market. Chu Tian walked over to take a look. This new cell phone was more refined than the trial version made for the high-level people. Moreover, as the first cell phone released by Miracle Commerce and Miracle City, it would have a large commemorative value in the future, therefore everyone wanted to buy one. These elves selling the cell phones were definitely not Miracle City's natives. But Chu Tian didn't find this strange. Because of the relationship between the Elven King Lancelot and the Vice City Lord Vivian, there were quite a few elves who came to Miracle City to work and some elves even built small towns nearby. There were already a portion of the elves, especially the young people who came to Miracle City. Some joined Miracle Commerce and some formed teams to start their own businesses. There were already several film and television companies created by the elves. Chu Tian asked in a curious voice, "What is a citizen card? You don't even know this? You must be an outsider." A Miracle City gnome looked at Chu Tian like he was a country bumpkin. He took out a thin crystal card from his pocket and waved it in front of Chu Tian like he was showing off. Miracle City has been collecting a large amount of information on the citizens recently. All the information is stored in the city's database and they are using high tech to create personal information cards. Don't look down on this card, there is a person's spiritual imprint on it. Each person's spiritual imprint is different and the citizen card is unique. There is no way to imitate it. It represents the identity of each official citizen. Chu Tian as the city lord didn't know about this at all and was being looked down upon by his own citizens. This was too shameful. It was a good thing he wasn't recognized. The citizen card can be used to buy things? Stupid. Miracle City's citizen card is not just proof of identity, it can also be used to open Miracle Commerce's personal savings function. We can put source stones in the bank and use the citizen card to spend money in Miracle Commerce. It is fast and convenient. The most important thing is that we can earn interest by putting money in the bank. Why are you saying this much to him? These outsiders won't understand anyway. Right. I should quickly buy a cell phone, otherwise I'll run out of stock. They were too lazy to care about this country bumpkin as they all went into the shopping center to buy new products. Chu Tian walked around and found that Miracle City was promoting the citizen card. This was Meng Qingwu's information system to make it easier for Miracle City to manage. She had invested large amounts of manpower and resources into creating a citizen's information system. The information of each citizen living in Miracle City would be collected and the other merchants and travelers would also have to go through the relevant procedures. This information would be used to create a database. Finally, based on the individual situation, they would be given citizen cards or other identification cards. Meng Qingwu's foresight made people sigh in admiration. This kind of information system had a large significance. It was as small as managing the city and helping with security, as large as opening bank accounts, personal loans, transport, and logistics management, as well as all of Miracle Commerce's business. This was a solid foundation for the information empire. This cell phone seems different from the ones we're using. Chu Tian found a counter selling cell phones in the Miracle Shopping Center. In the end, Chu Tian was surprised to find that not only was the cell phone different from the one they were using, there were also some differences in the internal functions. This is the first cell phone Miracle Commerce has released. Not only does it combine the functions of radio, video, camera, and communication, there is also a microcalculation matrix embedded inside. Miracle Commerce has used this microcalculation matrix as the foundation to create a system for the cell phone, making it easier to operate and having more comprehensive functions. This time Chu Tian was shocked. The microcalculation matrix was a simplified source energy matrix. The current Miracle Commerce's source energy matrix couldn't surpass 2 billion, so no matter how much it was compressed, it still had to be packed in boxes. It had to be at least several hundred kilograms, so it couldn't be portable. The Yunsek's laboratory kept simplifying the source energy matrix, not caring about the cost of weakening it, just to minimize the size of the matrix. In the end, they successfully created a microcalculation matrix. The smallest calculation speed was only a few 100,000 and it couldn't be equipped with intelligence, so it didn't have any data processing ability or value. However, it could be developed into a simple operating system. The first batch of cell phones were equipped with microcalculation chips, allowing the cell phone to have the ability to process information, creating a more flexible interface. This could be considered a breakthrough. Chapter 5:12. Miracle City's City Lord's Castle was holding a general meeting. The company's development had reached a turning point, so the focus of this meeting was to summarize the past and discuss the future. Meng Qingwu was wearing the City Lord's robe as she sat in the Vice City Lord's seat. Her beautiful and dignified face was very serious. There were several dozen people present, other than the various tribe leaders and Dongfang Haoren and a few generals. The rest were all peerless beauties. Not only were they very young, they all had their own merits and each one had a serious expression. At this time, a relaxed voice suddenly broke the heavy atmosphere in the meeting room. "Hey, Yun Yao? Feng Kaidai? Why are you back?" Chu Tian walked in through the side door and immediately saw two people he hadn't seen in a long time. It was Yun Yao and Feng Kaidai. They were both high-level executives of Miracle Commerce, but they had been working in Oldman's small town for a long time. Chu Tian was very surprised. "When were you transferred back to headquarters? I didn't even know." Feng Kaidai was still gentle and elegant, looking like a very cultured young miss from the outside. This kind of temperament made people feel like they were bathing in a spring breeze. Seeing Chu Tian, she revealed a gentle smile. "There are no more big matters in Oldman's small town. It's enough for Yun Yao's little brother Yun Xiao to manage it. We received elder sister Qingwu's transfer order and we took advantage of the fact that the Oldman transport tower was completed 2 days ago to come with Yun Yao to help." Yun Yao glared at Chu Tian and her voice was filled with sarcasm. "We've been in the city for a few days and you've only appeared now. You're truly a free and easy city lord. You're misunderstanding me by saying this. Actually, I'm very diligent normally. I'm not in closed-door cultivation right now." When Chu Tian said this, Meng Yingying and Nan Gongyun rolled their eyes and Meng Qingwu also glared at him. Chu Tian didn't realize it at all. "But two beauties have come from afar and it's my fault that I couldn't hold a welcoming reception for you. Since it's like this, why are we having a meeting? Come, let's go drink." "City Lord." Finance Minister Dolores stood up unhappily. This usually flirtatious vixen looked even more serious than Meng Qingwu at this moment. She said in a serious and reproachful tone, "Today's meeting is very important. Even if you don't help us, don't cause trouble, okay?" Sorry, I was too excited." Chu Tian felt bored and sat down. He crossed his legs and said to the young miss, "Let's begin." Meng Qingwu said, "Let's start from the production department." The production department was a very important department, so naturally it had to be managed by the most trustworthy person. Minister Meng Yingying quickly took out the prepared information. "Our Miracle Commerce's production department has done very well in the past month, with each production task being completed by an average of 20%. There are over 50 new factories, with 2/3 of them in the Forest of Chaos. Other than that, we are combining smart brains to create intelligent products. Currently." Meng Yingying spoke of a large amount of data and explained the situation in detail. She also introduced the future production plan and specific tasks. She spoke very smoothly, making Chu Tian look at her in a new light. Meng Qingwu gave her advice after hearing this. Meng Yingying quickly recorded it down. "Good." Chu Tian applauded in a very exaggerated manner. "Miracle Commerce has a smart and capable commander like Yingying. Our production line can definitely be guaranteed." Meng Yingying's face turned red. She didn't actually do anything because her elder sister had given her 2 smart brains. These were all collected and analyzed by the smart brains. Even the production plan and tasks were given by the smart brains. Yingying just summarized it and gave her opinion. Her elder sister was in charge of the overall situation, so she didn't need to plan anything herself. "Our production department is very smooth and our research is on the right track. We are currently developing in an orderly manner, so I'll first show everyone the related projects." Meng Qingwu waved her hand and a large screen came down, showing a busy factory. "Look, this is Miracle Commerce's newest spaceship base. We have recruited large amounts of people and invested large amounts of money, preparing to create a large-scale weapon that will dominate the future war. Because it is too complex, it will take a year to finish." A year? This was indeed a bit long. But this kind of complex large-scale weapon was not something that could be completed in a day. Meng Yingying quickly said, "The production department will immediately prepare the related factories. Once the spaceship is finished, it will be produced as soon as possible." A second screen came down at this time. Meng Qingwu said to the image inside, "This is the new source energy weapons research room. The company has recruited large amounts of experienced mechanical masters from the Great Zhou country. Me and the Yun sect believe that the mechanical armors of mechanical masters are very valuable. If we can modify it with Miracle Commerce's technology, using source energy batteries to drive it, adding in source energy shields, source energy swords, and source energy weapons, we can create a source energy fighter mech. While she was speaking, another screen showed the design. Meng Qingwu looked at Chu Tian. What does the city lord think? This design is not bad. Chu Tian looked at it for a bit. I believe that once the mech armor is developed, even the weakest soldier can become an expert. But I suggest we strengthen it further. For example, adding a power engine to the mech armor, making it even faster and stronger. It would be best if we can add flying equipment, so our mech armor soldiers can freely fly in the sky. We can even install a smart brain on each mech armor, creating an intelligent battle. Meng Qingwu quickly waved her hand to stop him. Stop, stop, stop. Does the young miss have anything better to add? Although your idea is very good, it's too far from reality. Meng Qingwu said with a sigh. Miracle Commerce's main problem is that we don't have enough funds, so we can't develop this high-level mech armor right now. Even if we develop a normal mech armor, it would be hard to mass-produce it. At most we can equip an elite army. We lack money? It can't be. Chu Tian had a look of disbelief. Didn't we just borrow over 100,000 source stones from the Eternal Forest not long ago? The funds have already been filled, and with the company's income, we can't maintain this little bit of research funding. City Lord, you really don't know the cost of food without managing the household. The finance minister Dolores couldn't sit still. Do you know how much resources this mech armor costs? Our current budget is 300,000 source stones. As for the airship budget, it is a terrifying number. As for the Gnome and Yun sect laboratories, they are spending more and more every month, just like a bottomless pit. Not to mention that we just conquered the Warhound Plains and the Great Zhou country, we still need to take out large amounts of source stones to invest in these places. How many people are queuing up in the Miracle City area to apply for loans? With our current financial situation, it is simply too difficult. Chu Tian's head swelled from hearing this. What the hell? They actually spent this much money? We have many projects right now. Other than the Miracle Shopping Center and the Spiritual Energy Network, there are many other projects that need to be deployed. Meng Qingwu lowered a few more screens and pointed at one of them as she said, for example, the city defense system. We plan to build missile silos in the hidden mountain ranges around Miracle City, creating a long-range military force. Other than that, we are preparing to build giant source energy cannons in the mountains to deal with powerful enemies in the future. Chu Tian felt more depressed the more he heard. Father always thought that Miracle Commerce was a money-making monster. As long as they fixed the holes in front of them, they wouldn't need to worry about money at all. Looking at the current situation, not only did Miracle Commerce lack money, it wasn't just a little bit. Although we need a lot of money, everyone doesn't need to be discouraged. Meng Qingwu saw that everyone's morale was a bit low. As the Vice City Lord, she immediately encouraged them. Miracle Commerce still has a large profit potential, but our current business is limited to the Great Summer Country and a few forest tribes. Moreover, the entire market has not been opened yet. We have built over 10 transport towers in the forest and are cooperating with the Eternal Forest. In the future, we will be doing business with several elven cities and tribes. Other than that, with the Great Zhou country and the Northern Militant country as the foundation, we will be expanding to the surrounding countries. The investment now isn't small, but the returns will be even larger in the future. Chu Tian nodded. That's right, there are several forest tribes and a Great Summer country. How many markets can there be? We need to expand our territory. The layout needs to be sped up. The powers in the Savage Highlands are still restless and there are too many variables, we can't slowly develop. Meng Qingwu began to make arrangements. Yun Yao, Kai Dai, you two will take over Dolores's work and work for the Miracle Shopping Center and foreign trade. You two already have experience, so there shouldn't be any problems. This is the map of the forest cities and underground cities I've prepared for you, as well as the general information of these cities, including the nearby large tribes. Miracle City will give you enough caravans and people, you just need to be in charge of dealing with them. This task was not light at all. Feng Kaidai was appointed as the foreign minister. Yun Yao was appointed as the commerce minister. The two of them immediately stood up. We'll definitely do a good job. Chu Tian asked, what about our chief financial officer Dolores? Miracle City's commerce minister was Dolores in the past, and the Fox Caravan was established by Dolores. Now that the diplomatic and commercial matters were given to Feng Kaidai and Feng Kaidai, wouldn't Dolores have nothing to do? This seductive fox's abilities weren't weak. It would be a pity if she was left idle in the city. Meng Qingwu replied, Miracle Commerce's biggest problem right now is the lack of money. Dolores has another important task, so she will focus on developing miracle banking from today onwards. Dolores nodded. I asked the city lord to be assured, the current Miracle City citizens already have a high enough trust in us. Ever since we introduced the citizen card and created the personal savings business, Miracle Banking's performance has been rising. I believe that the bank's potential has not been fully displayed yet. Miracle Banking was proposed by Dolores, so it had a special meaning to her. Dolores would naturally do her best to develop it. Meng Qingwu emphasized again, everyone remember, the current calm doesn't mean it will be stable forever. With the protection of the Trey ants and the good relationship with the elves, we still have to rely on external help. Every moment we are not strong is a moment we can't relax. Danger is always lurking in the shadows, so you must be prepared for danger in times of peace. Miracle City will develop as quickly as possible. Yes. Chu Tian hadn't participated in the young Miss meetings many times, but he never thought the young Miss Aura would be this strong. After being tempered by the chairman for over a year, she had become more mature and more like a strong woman who could see the big picture. The meeting ended here. Everyone already knew what to do. Miracle City and Miracle Commerce's biggest problem right now was that they didn't have money. Therefore, in the future, making money was the most important task for Miracle Commerce. Each department and each team had to work hard for this goal. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.